Okay, I'm going to call to order this Board of Selectmen special meeting for Wednesday, March 25th. It is 5:01. First order on the first agenda item is the consent agenda. Are there any questions with this consent agenda? If not, can I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? Motion carries. Next item is the appointments. I'm sorry?
No, Andrea, when you all went up, Andrea, it was like a little bit delayed, and I wanted to know I saw it, yes.
Next item is the appointments. First, like to just more or less make an announcement. There was some documentation included in our packet. We have two assigned open burn officials that have been appointed. They are the fire chief and the fire marshal. And their jobs are to work with residents who are looking for permits for open burn. So those appointments have been completed. And the next item on the agenda is the investment committee appointment. We have, we're in the need of two. We have one for tonight, and we will do another at one of our future meetings. One for tonight is for Toby, as a candidate for the investment committee. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Second? Is there any discussion?
What's the term length?
Yeah, it
I
does
don't have
matter.
that.
It's 2 years, because it's with every new board, you need a new board of finance, board of selectmen.
So this would be
So
till
we've got-
28?
Till 27, till the next election,
December
for 28.
31st,
So the investment committee is only 2 years,
Mhm.
so
2027.
Or 8, because it's 26 now.
December
through
31st, 27.
December through December
Okay.
2027.
And then January 1st was 2027. Yep.
Thank you.
At least under our current.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a discussion on the, I'm sorry?
Board of selectmen representative for investment.
Yes, I'm sorry. We do need to also select the Board of Selectmen. There is a representative from the Board of Selectmen on the investment committee. Steve Munno has had that role for the last term. We do need to officially appoint a member again. And I will nominate Steve as the member from the Board of Selectmen to remain on the the investment committee. Is there a second?
I'll say
Thank you. Any questions, discussions?
that. Steve, have you been engaging with them the past couple of years? I haven't heard any report outs or updates
Yes,
about
and I
that.
mean, our reports would generally come from Tony on this, but
Okay.
the investment committee meets as needed and as much as quarterly, but it has not been quarterly, I think.
We haven't met quarterly
It's been quite some time.
in some time, and we're hoping to resume that schedule as soon as you appoint the members.
It's been a good engaged committee. We get a very thorough report.
We used to report, we used to meet quarterly, and we get a report from our investment advisor each meeting, and so.
I think there's benefit to just sharing updates with the board as the meetings get back
Yeah,
on track.
absolutely.
Tony does provide an update as relates to what's happening from an investment standpoint as part of his regular things, but from a committee member meeting, that there's no reason not to. So Tony, make note of that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Completes that item. Next item is the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen Budget Advisory Committee. It was a recommendation put forth by by Scott Perdome on the Board of Finance to start
Sorry, are you not?
I'm sorry?
You can, okay. There's a resume also under appointments that you didn't mention. Are you doing that later?
Was that for
It was
investment
in
though?
investments.
No,
We
it wasn't
didn't
for
put it on.
investment.
So that's not on the agenda. I don't know why it's in the, well, I know why it's in the
So
packet, but
there's
it's
one for
not.
the building committee, but it's under appointments, but you're gonna get to that later, is that the idea? We're just
Yes,
confused by
yes,
the
just in-
Organization, that's all.
Yes, in terms of the
Okay.
building committee appointment, it will be done under that agenda
Okay.
item. Yes,
So where
thank
are
you.
we next? I'm sorry.
We're at Board of Finance Budget Advisory Committee. item 3. And there was some information that was provided with regard to that. So we wanted to, I did indicate to the Board of Finance that I would bring it to the Board of Selectmen. The sub-bullet under there is very specific because we have been engaging, I've been engaging for a period of time now with our town attorney and Birch and Moses, specifically to look at the homestead exemption as a potential for doing exactly what Scott has outlined is being suggested as part of this. So I felt it was important to identify the fact that there is work already being done on this. From my perspective and what I did communicate to the Board of Finance at the time is that I felt that this was a function for the Board of Finance. They do not have a lot of subcommittees. They meet once a month, and my sense was this particular element, considering that it has that it can have such an impact on what we're doing, and it does fall right in line with what was being suggested, that they assign members to focus on that specifically, and they take the responsibility of moving that forward in terms of collecting information and coming up with some conclusions that they can then present, and we can collaborate on once they've done that.
Wouldn't it be up to the Board of Selectmen to then pass an ordinance, or what is that? What is the way that it gets
Yes,
actually
ultimately it would require that, yes, and Nick can speak to that if you need to, but yes, I mean, it would ultimately get to that. My sense is that, the first steps obviously are to evaluate, identify specifically what can be done, what can't be done, what the implications are in terms of what can be done, what the impact is to our budget, things of that nature, which I feel falls squarely in the area of finance and Board of Finance. So my sense is if they focus on getting together the information so that they can present it and identify or ask us whatever questions they need, at that point in time, we can be part of that process at that time. But right now, we still have to, this was done, whenever this type of thing is done, it's usually done by myself, Tony, Finance and First Selectman's office. And I feel pretty strongly that the Board of Finance needs to get a little bit more engaged in it and take on that responsibility so as to advise us in terms of what we might want to, what direction they might want to go, or at least prepare the information for us to consider. So we're not necessarily, the board here isn't necessarily preparing it ourselves.
So have they taken up your suggestion? Have they created a committee? I didn't see
They have
that at
not.
the last
They have not. They have not. I told them that I would bring this to the Board of Selectmen and discuss it with the Board of Selectmen to determine what direction we'll go on this. Will they? I have talked to the chair, and it's something that he would present. He will indeed present to the.
So he's amenable to the idea?
Yes, he is.
Because I think the other aspect of it, besides who is on the committee, is the whether it's Board of Finance or as well as Board of Selectmen or not, is the issue of trying to make sure that this is a bipartisan discussion. I think that's important if we're going to reach consensus.
Agreed. Certainly no issue with that. And it can be on the Board of Finance. I think they should start with the subcommittee of the Board of Finance to begin the work, and then subsequently, when they feel it's appropriate for us to get engaged with some discussion, bring us in at that point in time. I don't see, I don't feel that it's required for both entities to be involved in the legwork. We can do our own if we need, if that's what we feel we want to do, but my sense is that the Board of Finance should take it up, identify, collect the information, evaluate, work with our town attorneys as necessary, and with town staff, with Tony, et cetera, and then move from there.
Okay, well, the one other thing I just to make clear in terms of taxpayer expectations, there is no way any sort of modification at this point can be achieved by May if it has to be enacted by an ordinance. So I just wanted to make it clear that the potential tax programs or relief for certain members of our community could not, beyond what's already been passed, could not go into effect for the bills that are gonna go out this summer.
We've confirmed that, that is
Yeah,
absolutely the case.
but I just
Yes.
want people to understand that.
Yes, we
So-
are looking at, anything we do is for the next budget, the 28 budget,
Thank
correct?
you. I just wanted to make that on
Which-
the record for clarity.
Right, which is, and to Scott's point and to the points that previous points that we've made, is it's best to get it started sooner rather than later because of the fact that it does require an ordinance. There have been new developments with regards to the homestead exemption, completely new, that I think fall very much in line, which is the reason that we've been working on it. We feel there is some real potential for this to have an impact and do exactly what we're looking to do. And what we're looking to do is relief in the sense of redistribution. And that's a real important thing for people to understand, the public to understand. Redistribution means whatever goes down goes up for someone, whatever goes up goes down for someone. So it's, and it would relate to what happened with regard to Revelle, but the new homestead exemption parameters are broader and a little, or no, actually I should say are more defined.
Slightly more defined.
So in such a way as it falls more in line with what we had hoped to do originally with the homestead. That there were too many concerns in order for us to move forward with. Those I think have been resolved, and I think this is only as of January of 26.
Yeah, there's some new changes that clarified and gave us, from a legal perspective, a bit more of a comfort level on proceeding if, as you suggest, the Board of Finance figures out that numbers-wise, this could be something that's beneficial to the community. We are finalizing an opinion on those concerns initially, which were, if you're creating a category of residents that are essentially getting a benefit that others aren't, that can create some potential for litigation. And some other towns who took a first crack at implementing the first version of the homestead exemption, I mean, that's very much the conversation in town, and I think there is some pending litigation right now on that. So that was our concern. That's how it actually did play out after we saw homestead go into effect. But here, the legislature's signaling, hey, we're trying to make this happen. We're trying to give more of a legal support for an authority for the towns to have discretion to create these categories, basically. And is that ultimately I mean, these haven't been decided in court, even the new version, there is some risk there. But I think from our perspective at Bertram Moses, we would support, at this point, we've looked at the constitutional questions, and basically I think we would be able to support and get behind this initiative, which would be implemented as a local ordinance.
Right, okay.
I have a question about process. You mentioned would this be a subcommittee of the Board of Finance? Because I think in some of the preliminary documentation that you got describing it, it was Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen.
No, it was the documentation indicates clearly their request was for Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
I'm simply suggesting that we initially start, particularly since we have some time, but we initially start with the Board of Finance doing some legwork on this and then bringing in the Board of Selectmen once it's a little bit more substantive.
Committee is set up.
Correct.
Did
If they
you-
can identify areas beyond, there could be something beyond the Homestead Act. I certainly haven't, we haven't been able to find it, but they might be able to find something
Okay.
and then bring us in at that point in time.
Okay, so they're gonna look at setting up what their goals and objectives are and then bring Board of Selectmen into the conversation.
That's my recommendation.
Okay.
And as I say, one of the reasons is our board is engaged in many different things. We have many subcommittees, and there's a demand on time that goes along with that. You folks are volunteers, and that's not the same case with the Board of Finance. It's not to put more strain on them, but it's certainly something that's in their area of responsibility and expertise. And obviously, it would be a help if they were able to get this started, identify where we need to go, and then we can, at that point in time, consider doing something more jointly.
Did you have a discussion with Scott? Because the goal was clearly stated, the purpose. And in that purpose, it was to include the 2 members, later you'll see that, Board of Selectmen. And I see value in that, but I'm curious, did you talk to Scott about your thought of holding off on Board of Selectmen membership and why he thought that was of value to have from the
What I,
outset.
at the time of the meeting, what I discussed was specifically that I felt the Board of Finance should take this responsibility on. I did not specifically say, hey, how about you guys appoint 2 people and then come to us or any, I didn't get into the specifics of that, Andrea. What I did speak with the entire board
So
about
did
was,
they have concerns about them taking it on independently first?
if they did, they didn't voice them to me at the time.
Okay, and so what would that make the number of this subcommittee be? Because originally it was proposed as 2 from Board of Finance, 2 from our board, equated to 4.
It would be what they decide, but I would expect that it would be 2 people from the Board of Finance to take this up, take a look at it, do a little legwork on what needs to be done, and then come to us at that point and identify what can be done from there.
Oh, so you're just tasking the Board of Finance with finding all of the, with
Doing
whether
the
it's
pre-
Homestead Act or finding what other ways that we can think about the distribution of tax burden, and then once they have that information and they have things to talk about, like instead of all of us, instead of both boards being involved in getting the background, then this committee would come together and they would start with those conversation pieces? Is that
And
what
I
I'm?
think, well, I think what Mika's suggesting is there not be a joint subcommittee. Mika's suggesting there not be a joint subcommittee. That's the proposal on the table. Mika's suggesting the Board of Finance can do this on their own and present us with information as opposed to there being a subcommittee comprised of both boards. And so that's what I believe was articulated around that, right? So
It's really that simple.
we have subcommittees, the Board of Finance doesn't seem to have their own subcommittees, and this could be a bipartisan subcommittee of the Board of Finance to do the work. And I would say if this ultimately is gonna come to ordinance, that we would be working on, then there would be some work happening on our ordinance committee to establish something we felt that was prudent.
Right.
But I think
Which is
that's
why
what
it
I'm
might-
hearing, to be
yeah.
clear.
While I understand the notion that this falls very clearly within the purview of the Board of Finance, I see this and appreciate Scott's attempt to bridge the gap and strengthen the working relationship between our 2 boards. Because really, there isn't much engagement between Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen outside of the budget, excuse me, outside of the budget season. And even then, it's very kind of limited, one could argue. And so I think Scott's initial proposal is the better path forward because it bridges that gap. We provide insights at the Board of Finance as elected officials, as people that deal with a whole suite of issues. We can provide insights and input that I think would be valuable to the Board of Finance as they explore these options. And then when it is time to come back to us, it would be more efficient because we'd be involved and engaged from the onset. So I think it sets us up for greater short and long-term success if we do retain at least some Board of Selectmen representation on this subcommittee, but that's just my perspective.
I think it brings up a very good point on elected official versus appointed, and feel confident, the information that we get from the public and contributing to the committee. That's a fair
Thank
point.
you.
Yeah, I hear you. I think one of the options, if it was a Board of Finance subcommittee, they could come and present to the full Board of Selectmen at a meeting, so it wouldn't be a joint subcommittee meeting, but a few people would have the chance to come to a meeting and present. I think they're all fine paths forward. I don't know if there's been any history, if maybe Tony, you could speak to, have there been joint subcommittees of this nature between Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance and what that's looked like in the past?
There was a joint budget subcommittee, I think twice. We had one member of each board at the time. And it was basically a review of our budget process and a review of our budget. Nothing significant came out of either attempt.
And please, let me be really clear. I agree with Scott's proposal. I think it's a good proposal. I am not suggesting that we not do that. My suggestion is one of timing and resources. There's a great expectation put on you folks. As volunteers, we have multiple, and we have difficulties and challenges scheduling what we already have committees for. So what I'm simply suggesting is that we give them an opportunity to do some of the legwork prior to us getting involved. And then at that point in time, evaluating us considering being involved, once there's a little bit more substance and we know what's going on. So that way there's not as many meetings required because there's already some traction, there's already some information there. So I want to be really crystal clear. I am not opposed to the concept, the premise, or the activity. I'm simply suggesting that there might be a better timing means by which we can get this done. That's really what it boils down to. But I do think it's a good idea. I think we know that there is indeed something that may help us. So I think it would be wonderful to have resources looking at that. And my sense is that should start off by being the finance
So
board.
would
finance.
you serve on this committee as the first selectman?
I serve on the Board of Finance as an
Yeah.
ex officio member,
So-
so I would hear what's going on. I don't serve on this committee, correct?
Well, this one hasn't been created.
If it's a subcommittee, it would be their subcommittee, it's a similar way that we have our personnel, our strategic, our ordinance.
Let me suggest this.
Please.
Why don't we say that they set up a committee, but whenever they go and report back to the full Board of Finance,
Mhm.
they also come to us, and then we can go from there. So
Absolutely.
whatever is their first report back, then we'll can see whether we think it makes sense to expand the committee. But
That
we'll
sounds
stay
good.
afraid,
Yeah.
surprised that way.
And when
No problem.
appropriate, we can invite them to an ordinance meeting if needed.
Right, so let's start by, to keep us fully in the loop, we'll ask their committee to brief us as well as to the Board of Finance.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is CUPOP update and property report provided by our chair of CUPOP, Nicole Donzello. And for those who may not know, CUPOP is our commission on the use of publicly owned property. Nicole, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
I do think it's appropriate to, I know you're here in your capacity of representing CUPOP, but you are also the chair of the WDTC. And I feel like that's.
I am, proudly so,
noted
thank
for
you.
the record. You're welcome.
This report is basically a summary of all of the work that my commission has done over the past year and 3 months of 2026. We also have the report from 2024, just to put everything into perspective, because I know some of the properties that we have recently been discussing were addressed in 2024. We have, with the great volunteers on my commission, really delved in deeply into all of the deeds, restrictive covenants, et cetera, in regard to all of the publicly owned property in town. That has not been done since 1982. And we want to ensure, to be clear, that our job is to provide the documentation to the Board of Selectmen so that they may make their decisions. We are not a decision-making authority. We make recommendations like any other commission or committee in town to the Board of Selectmen who makes those decisions. I tried to break it down because we have done substantial work in the last 2 years. We do have some properties left to review, which I will get to in a moment. To be clear, very small amount of properties were recommended for change in use to the Board of Selectmen. For example, this year, 5 Newton Road was recommended. We were asked and tasked prior to Amy and Warren being on to look at properties in town for the potential of a rebuild of a police department if that was the direction that the town decided to go in. That obviously is not the case now, given the renovations that will be discussed at some point. So that was very specific to the police department. That report and slideshow presentation is found on our website. 312 Rimmon Road, which is 16.5 acres. That was recommended by the Commission for multi-use residential development as well as trail connectivity. In the Greenway expansion plan that the Conservation Commission had created years ago and adds to it regularly. That is one of the properties identified there to extend the Greenway. The theater lots, and 41 Pease Road, which is the paper road to theater lots, 9.07 acres. That was recommended for multi-use residential development and trail connectivity. Again, there is a trail in that area. It does require individuals to travel on the roads, so for safety purposes, it was identified that perhaps this potential properties could serve as part of that trail.
Excuse me, Nicole, can
Sure.
I just ask a process question?
Sure.
So I've got questions about every single one of these.
Sure.
So what are we trying to accomplish? Are you just trying to list all the things? Or, and I also think it's important that any change in use or recommendation for a use that's like housing or something, whatever it be, one of them was pumpkin fields. We need some opportunity for public engagement, and I know the public doesn't usually show up for group op meetings. So I just ask, I know we have a short agenda right now, but what's
Sure.
our process going forward?
Sure.
So that
So-
we can fully understand these and share it with the public.
Sure, so this is a summary of the work that we've done. All of the reports will be found on our webpage, so you can review all the reports in detail and then decide as a board, because you are the decision-making authority, if there is a particular property that you would like to review, and then subsequently choose from that list what you would like to address and engage the public in more detail.
It would be so helpful for me as a visual learner and land use professional to see this not in a list or bullet form but on a map, and to have all of these properties highlightable with perhaps your recommendation included, with deed information included, like a much more visual and interactive way to assess and comprehend this. I also think it's very hard to make land use decisions independent of conceptualizing or contextualizing them with the rest, and in neighboring properties, and like in a perfect world we'd have soil maps and data in that map. So is that something that Coupop could do?
What, isn't that a full report?
There's a
for
full
every
report on
single
every
piece?
property that is
What is that?
available.
That doesn't answer my question. Does the full report
I
have
wasn't
a
answering,
map?
I was just
Yes,
clarifying
it
that
has,
that was.
okay, so if
I've never seen the full report, there's not a link to it in this, which would be helpful, FYI.
Okay, so let me repeat what I said in the beginning, if I may, there may have been some confusion. All of these reports are found on our website.
Yes.
And within that
I'll repeat
report,
myself, Nicole, it would be helpful in the summary to have the link direct to your website for us in our convenience and ease of access. I can Google and try to find your website right now. We just got
It's
this
attached to the-
yesterday.
It's
first
a
of all.
we've also received all of
we
these
received all the reports.
in the previous 2 years, every single one, very detailed.
No,
You've seen them before. I know you have, but Andrew's the person who said she
Well,
hadn't
well,
received
I think what we
They've
are.
been shared.
Well, I think I
I
understand.
think what we are making clear that is when we do want to consider something and share it with the public, certainly Andrea has a very important point that we should have mapping and we should have visuals and we should be able to show residents the context of what other uses are around these properties. I think that's important, so.
Right.
I think that-
And what we can do later is we can compile all of the reports in one large report, but just to answer that question, we still have about 4 or 5 properties we still need to review, and each property that we have reviewed has all of the visuals within it. It has all of the deeds dating back many, many decades. It has the wetland maps, it has the topography maps, it has maps of the neighborhood, the neighboring areas. It does
Separate
provide.
maps.
It's separate maps in
Yes.
the report, and it does provide that. Eventually, as I was going to indicate towards the end of my report, is moving forward what our steps will be. And one of them will be compiling all of these properties together into one comprehensive report. And I was going to request of the Board of Selectmen how you would like that to be presented and preserved for future commissions and committees and the Board of Selectmen to utilize. So we don't need to go through this long 2-year process to research these properties again and have such a large span of time between 1982 and 2026, please don't make me do the math, to be able to review all of these properties, and this should be done more regularly. So that was going to be my request at the end of our review. But we still have 4 additional ones. But in the meantime, they are individually listed with all of the visuals They have not been compiled on one large map, mainly because we aren't completed, and secondly, because there are very few properties that are even able to be looked at for any change in use, whether it's deed restrictions, whether it's topography issues, whether it's wetlands, things of that nature. So when we get to the end, if there are properties, and it looks like there's very limited ones as I'm continuing on in my report, that can even be looked at for other uses, we can certainly put that into one large map so that you can see where they are in close proximity. For example, looking at, let's see, when I say deed restricted open space change in use, I don't mean change in use legally, I mean changing it as a municipality, the use of that property. Open space, the definition by Connecticut General Statute involves wetlands, involves agricultural use, involves things of that nature. Specifically, it's defined in 12-107B. It's defined as any area of undeveloped land, including forest, wetland, or farmland. The key element to the open space statute, and I'm sure some of you know this that are very involved in, deep and things of that nature, is to prevent development on those lands. And so we certainly, when looking at the deed restricted open spaces in town, which there are many, two of them kind of jumped out at us. One, because it was reported to us, with Jason Morrill created this wonderful proposal regarding 1159 Racebrook Road. Again, that's within the report, indicating that yes, there are wetlands in the back of the property, so we cannot, we do not want to disturb the wetlands. But on the front 2 acres, that could be a potential to restore native plantings and to rid that property of invasives. On 115 Ford Road, again, we discussed the possibility of having an agritourism type of location there. Again, very similar to 1159 Racebrook Road, wetlands in the back. In the front, we could perhaps, actually, I don't want to take credit for the pumpkins. I actually discussed it with Kathy Wick and got some ideas of how we could utilize that property for some kind of a picking patch of some sort, to have some kind of an agritourism opportunity in Woodbridge. Why leave Woodbridge when we have this beautiful land that we could utilize, that we go to other towns to do the same thing? And we have, yeah, right, yes. And I think I talked to you about this too, I think.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
The Townline Farm right in the corner does have a pumpkin.
Right, they do.
Yeah.
And, but I don't think we have to be limited to one, or just, we can have more than one. And there's we have Savino's right down the road there, and, perhaps we can persuade Massaro, who isn't able to, because of space restrictions, plant pumpkins, so we can, do something of that nature. But again, it's your decision as to what you want to do.
So if I could, Nicole, I think there's a distinction between the definition of legal open space and the actual terms of the particular conservation easement or restriction.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly in the past, I know when we acquired a leggy, it was very important that it was allowed recreational use, and sometimes they do not. So that's when I was alluding to before we met, was just, I think here you have to talk about the actual language that's specific to what is the restriction.
And that is in the report.
Okay.
The deed is included, the language is in there, so that is certainly, this is just meant as an outline.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's not just the open space
Right,
legal
exactly.
definition. That's
Yeah, all language is in there.
So.
We then, I skipped over the discontinued use. I know that we were asked to look at 27 Laurel. This is an issue that has been going on for, dare I say, a decade or so. I may be exaggerating a tad bit, but it's definitely been years and years. So we did make recommendations on 3 of those properties. Again, those are in the reports. I'm just outlining that here for you.
What does that mean to discontinued use, or your suggestion?
It's an abandonment, but the legal definition of what they call is discontinued use. And I presented on that to the Board of Selectmen, I think last year on 27.
I didn't watch it, but.
I know you did it, yes.
Does it revert back to an adjacent landowner, or what happens to it?
You have, well, I'm gonna leave that to Nick to answer to get into specifics, but you can certainly, you notice the neighbors is a process that you go through. It has to be voted on by the town because it is a change in use. It actually was on the town meeting, I think in the town, about some May, maybe about 10 years ago or so.
It was taken off
active
prior to the meeting.
right. And there is a process where abutting neighbors are notified, and they do have the opportunity to obviously engage in that decision. I know in regard to 27 Laurel particularly, there was an offer to they asked the town if they would consider discontinued use, or they did also offer to purchase. So, but Nick could probably, better than I, give the official process for an abandonment discontinued use situation.
I just wanted to understand in general terms what it meant, and I
Right.
understand as a board, we need to go back to it in
Mhm.
more detail.
And so, right, and so then, we listed all the properties between the latest reports lists the properties where we did not have recommend any change in use, again, for the reasons I listed prior. There's another list as well in the 2024 report. We did acquire publicly owned property on 1875 Litchfield Turnpike.
State required.
Yeah, state acquired.
The
it.
state
The state,
acquired it,
yes.
right? As
Yeah,
part
it'll
of
appear as
West
a-
Rock State Park.
Right, and it'll appear as a category 4. It's 28.2 acres. We do have a pending, it was a potential acquisition. There is a development on 20 Blue Trail Drive. I was not able to get an update on that, but
What is that about?
it's a,
Who's potentially buying it?
no one's buying it. What is happening is the 20 Blue Trail Drive owner, who is developing 3 private homes, has offered to donate to the town of Woodbridge 15 acres of land of open space that he would deed restricted.
Okay.
And he would also allow for easements to continue the trails that are in that area to go through the property that he owns.
Okay.
And I don't have an update on
Yeah, there
that.
hasn't been much progress. I run by there daily,
Right.
and after establishing the access, there's been
Right.
no update for at least a year.
And I haven't had an update either. I haven't been able to obtain one. I know that at some point it was in wetlands, but I'm not quite sure what the update is on that. Then we still have 4 properties that we are discussing currently. 52 Center Road is actually the cut through to Peace Park. So that, as I indicated, will go alongside with the Peace Park discussion. 95 Center, 39 Manila, and the Selden Street properties, which again I will reference in more detail in a minute. We have the remaining properties as listed that we have not discussed as of yet, but that is what's remaining on the Category 3 properties. Additional projects that we've completed. Again, as indicated, we created a presentation if the Board of Selectmen had decided to go the new build route on the police department. We provided the POCD recommendations and it included housing, conservation, recreation, sustainability, EDC, Historical Society, Police Commission, and Agricultural Commission to the TPZ back in December. And when the first draft came out, and we also submitted a second set of recommendations of items that we thought were important to show collaboration between the committees and commissions. Again, it is to support all of these initiatives in town, to support all the committees and commissions. We did not limit our recommendations to one commission, which is what occurred 10 years ago. Rather, we can offer and have worked collaboratively with some of these commissions and committees already in trying to meet town goals. We also participated in TAC with the CCW towards the master plan with other committees and commissions in town. Currently, we are collaborating with REC regarding Peace Park, and this is something that I have reported on previously in 2024 and now. These are hopefully something that we can investigate and look into the Steve grant to assist with. I listed it here, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it'll be providing amenities to children in town to utilize Peace, to make a little campus there for them of activities. ADA accessible, I call it a track, but it would be similar to Fitzgerald Field around the front fields, which would allow access to the back fields for ADA individuals. There would be a splash pad, a bicycle playground or park, as they did in Newtown on the old Fairfield Hills property, which has been very successful. We've been in contact with their recreation department, an outdoor ice skating rink, and indoor ADA accessible restrooms. This is something that we have met with recreation, we have spoken with Tony about. We recently, and this is the paperwork that I provided to you earlier at the beginning of the meeting, which would be for a landscape architect to look at it, and that was the estimate provided. hopefully it would not.
Nicole, this is a date of March 2022. Is that?
Oh, he must have had a
So
typo
that's a
because it was last
typo?
week.
Okay.
March
So-
22.
I didn't teleport, it was last
Okay.
week.
It's up here at the top with 2026.
Right.
Okay, I'm just looking.
It was
at
on, I'll have him change that. It was on Thursday.
That was a good catch, I can see.
And so just out of curiosity, because you said you've identified grants, I'd be curious to see which grants you've identified and the timing of the applications.
Right.
And I'd imagine this would be funded by the grant, or this would?
Right.
Okay.
So I'm not looking to put any more burden on the taxpayers in town, for
Thank you.
certainly.
I'm sure. They all
Me
appreciate
being one of
that.
them.
Yes.
The steep grant is what we were hoping, and Tony, of course, is the expert on the steep grant. But, you know, in order to, you know, successfully apply for a steep grant, you know, you have to have all of your estimates and, you know, show that you are, you know, very, you know, serious about the project, and that unfortunately involves, you know, having a master plan or something of that nature set up for that grant application.
Oh, so we would need this in advance of the application?
Correct.
So this wouldn't be funded by a grant?
Right, this would not be funded by a grant.
Okay,
but-
that was my question.
Right,
The
I'm sorry, I thought you meant by the project.
No, I was-
I'm sorry.
Okay, no.
The landscape architecture work
So we
would
can
be done
expect
prior
a
to the
funding
grant.
request at some point.
Yes, which
regarding
would-
this.
Yeah.
So did this have to go out to bid for, how are we only able to
This-
select?
We are not in the process of this is getting an idea so we understand what the particulars could be related to the project that we may want to do. So this is very preliminary, and it's in an effort so that if we do need information from a grant perspective, that we have. And even this can be part of a grant. The 13, we can find a grant if we have a number.
Okay, but my question is, how do we choose Eris Land Studio? Because if you're putting them as the quote in
We
the
are not.
grant, then that's.
We are using their expertise as a means by which to say, we have information indicating that this is what, we're not selecting anyone. The selection process, the bidding process is when you're selecting someone to do a job, whatever it might be. This is simply to have information so that if it's necessary, if we find an opportunity for a grant, for a landscape architect, to help us identify what the costs are if we're doing a project like this. We know that grant, the amount of money that we would be looking for from a grant perspective would be upwards of $13,000 plus. So we just have that. This is not an endorsement of Eris. This is not a recommendation from it or anything along those lines. Again, that's not what this entire report is about. This is just an update from Coopop in terms of what they're working on, and particularly because we've been talking about change in land use in some areas. So I don't want to make this bigger than it is. Nicole has graciously indicated that she will come back and we can have a broader discussion and a more detailed discussion in terms of any particulars that may happen. This is very broad. This is just, like she said, a summary in terms of what we're doing.
But to that end, I would ask when you come back, you give us show us where Peace Park is and how it's 43 acres and all that. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
then just to end here, we have the project that's going on down in the business district, which we can talk about later, regarding the connectivity of trails to be able to utilize our publicly owned property to connect the trails to the business district, to direct traffic towards that area.
Coopap has been doing a considerable amount of work with regards to our town property in terms of any potentials that we have. And for that, I'd very much like to thank you and your team, Nicole, and please
Thank you.
extend the thanks to them. And but there's much more that we'll be considering as a result of that work. That's not on the table today.
And with respect to trails too, is that a process that the Board of Selectmen has to approve, or who has to approve that?
Ultimately, what needs to be done in terms of if there's it depends on what's done, Amy, honestly.
Yeah.
But I would expect that any land use decision generally requires the Board of Selectmen involvement.
I ask that since we're going to be, cataloging a portfolio of developable land. I'm
Mhm.
just trying to understand how all of this fits together.
And sorry, I just want
Coop
to
will be a
say,
part of that,
right. And I just want to say too, if there's anything that you see in the reports or any questions you have about town-owned property, we've researched all of them, please feel free to reach out to any of us on the commission, or come and see us at the commission. We'd be more than happy to answer questions because we've really delved in deep to ensure that you all have, as a decision-making authority, all the documentation you need that should answer all
So-
your questions.
I sincerely appreciate that. I do want to clarify because I'm a little dissatisfied with our previous correspondence on this subject. I understand that each property has a link with everything compiled pertaining to that property as separate but cohesive documents. What I was speaking of, which would be, I think, valuable for our decision-making needs, but probably much broader, is an interactive map where you can see, zoom in and out, where these are layered, where the information is layered, you can toggle on and off, you can see them in relation to each other.
Sure.
So, so I don't know if that is beyond the scope of Coopop's work or expertise, but I do think that would be a very valuable tool. That is how land use decisions are generally made.
Well, I can tell you definitively it's beyond my expertise.
It's beyond the
For
commission's
sure.
expertise.
But we do have someone on my commission. This is why I was going to ask, as we complete our properties, because we're not there yet, when they're all completed, which should be shortly, what's the best way to serve the town in displaying this information? So if that is the recommendation that you would like, then we could certainly look into that. It is beyond the scope of our commission, but we just happen to perhaps have someone that could assist with that, but I don't, but
Yeah, we
definitively
can
it's
talk
beyond
more
my
about
scope,
it.
I'll tell you that.
Nicole, does Coopop have a budget to do something that's of that nature?
No, we have no budget.
So, no budget.
I know there was an intern with Scrog who did some mapping project. This could be a nice phase 2 of that.
That was a GIS project from an intern who specialized in GIS.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not available to us at this point.
But things to think about, Andrea, as you go forward with that, just to let us know, when we get there, I'll come back and we'll
Yeah.
talk about it, but, just things to think about. Do you want all the town properties on the map? Do you want just the ones that we've identified as potential changes in use? Do you want the trails? And then also, one of the things that we put within the POCD is to work collaboratively with conservation for them to identify characteristics of lands within towns, wetlands, things of that nature. We have those in our report.
Right.
It would be nice for them to take it the next step, right?
Right.
And provide more information regarding it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. I just want to note, for the public, if anybody wanted to find the reports that are completed on the properties where there are recommendations, that they are all on the town website. You can just go over to Coopop. They're all listed with links right underneath there.
Thank you.
And there's some that we're still working on, by the way. We are volunteers, but they all will be on there.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda is the town council update, Nick.
Good evening, everyone. Nicholas Bamonte, Town Attorney. 3 things. Number 1, we heard from former Selectman Vogel at the last meeting who raised some concerns about the town's representation on the Board of Ed. In reference,
Specify which Board of Ed.
Amity Board,
Amity, yeah, right.
I know, I just wanted,
for the record.
For,
Correct.
yes, got it, thank you. There is some conflict with what the charter says in terms of representation. However, there's a reason for that. It's because this was litigated and ultimately decided by the courts, and there's a whole decision that sort of lays out a framework for how the boards are, or how the board and the different towns are represented within that board. So that's the guiding document. I'm in the process of, I just haven't gotten there yet, quite frankly. I need to reduce that to writing, and then I'll distribute it so that everyone is informed of what that looks like
So it's
currently.
not case law specific to Amity?
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Maria,
1974, the
Yeah.
decision came out in 1974.
and we had to dig.
Because it's weird, because the charter was revised since then.
I
So
mean, I wasn't alive. I don't know.
there is a larger conversation because it has to do with plan of regionalization for the Amity district. what is on file with the state of Connecticut, and the fact that because of what's on file, this is why this court case happened. And so there's some more digging that we have to do to find out how it is exactly we codify, how the
Some sort of
codified
change.
functions. Correct.
Right.
And how, and any changes that need to be made, how that is to be made.
Yeah, that analysis is still in process. It took us months just to get the court records because they're in storage, and so we are there and it is in process. Maria had posed some of these questions to me earlier because I understand there may be some thought moving forward for changing up, or at least considering how the representation is laid out.
Thank you.
More on that to come. Number two main questions that Amy posed through her memo. I'm in the process of also reducing this to writing, but let me just lay out where I'm at. Question number one was, why isn't the Board of Selectmen appointing officers like the town attorney or the town planner or consultant? So, Amy, you referenced a couple sections in the charter. Here's the enforcement officer. Again, the assessor, the collector, town clerks, assistant town clerks, registrars and sub-registrars of vitals, and again, the admin officer. So, I mean, there's a distinction here. There is that general authority to the first selectman, and then yes, you have the purchasing ordinance that also has an exemption from that purchasing process for contracting out for professional services, which expressly says attorneys. So, I mean, again, I wasn't here in 2006 when the Board of Selectmen approved that ordinance, but there's also language in the charter to the effect of, well, the Board of Selectmen can delegate their authority. So was that approval of that ordinance a delegation in some way? I don't know, we can look at the minutes, but I mean.
I guess I don't understand why the practice was until very recently.
Well, I talked to
notwithstanding
Jerry
the 2006
again,
ordinance.
and he said, I mean, look, I agree with you, Nick. I mean,
So you think he just, a bunch of town attorneys just forgot it until we got to your being there?
forgot.
Forgot that there was, or failed to notice that there was this flexibility for the first selectman to make a solo.
No, I mean, I had a conversation with Jerry on the way over here. I mean, from at least his and my perspective, that was never a question.
But the Board of Selectmen,
They
I
always,
had it.
they
always
put it
voted.
on to the Board of
They always
Selectmen,
voted.
but I mean,
I
look,
don't- This
That's been
doesn't
the
add
town
up,
practice.
I don't get it. I don't get what you're saying. Like, yeah, can you help me to understand how something can be done and practiced for so long a certain way and then all of a sudden it not be? So if the precedent of our town was that the full board voted on these types of hires, why suddenly is that?
well,
Like,
because no one asked the town attorney to render this opinion before.
I-
No one
so
has like
interesting
studied
that-
the words of the charter that have weight. I'm sorry, Andrea, like you're asking me my legal opinion. This is me doing the analysis.
Right, so then I guess it comes down to the principle of the first selectman and what their values are.
Please don't question my values,
Is
Andrea.
that, well,
Please don't question my
I'm
values.
not, I don't mean to in, I don't mean to in an offensive way, I mean.
There is no other way.
Well, Mika, if every other selectman
for 10
sought
years-
counsel from their full board and you're operating independently just because you can,
We chose.
that does say something, doesn't it?
We chose 3 years ago during the election, after the election of 2023, we went through a process of selecting an attorney because our attorney resigned. Whatever was happening, whatever decisions were made, are only made when there's a change. I don't know when Jerry Weiner started here, and I don't know what change was made or how he was hired. What I can tell you in 2017, when I was on the board, we were doing ad hoc committees, and we were operating in the way that I've been operating. I have not come up with a new rule that says that this is something that I'm going to do that nobody else has done, okay? If it hasn't been done, that's up to them. There have been a minor number of attorneys selected over the course of the last 20-some-odd years. We haven't had that many. So it's not something that you're going to tell me was such a process that we've been doing this for 20 years the same way, when there's only been that limited number of times that there was even a decision that had to be made along those
The
lines.
attorney is one example.
So-
I understand your point, it's taken in this context, but the attorney is just one example. And so I do think if you.
The
run
attorney
scope,
is a
it would
professional
be-
service. Tony will tell you, and I don't want to drag you into anything that you don't want to be in, Tony, but if I'm not mistaken, from a professional services standpoint, the Board of Selectmen's office has made decisions as relates to professional services way longer than I've been in office.
The first selectman's office? you mean?
Correct.
Yes.
So again, you're suggesting that I'm doing something that hasn't been done before, and I don't believe that to be the case. Okay? So thank you
wish you
for,
valued
I-
the input of your board.
I think it is.
I do, I
Since-
do.
Since we do have the charter revision, I think it's relevant for every member of the Board of Selectmen to consider what they think should be the process going forward. Myself, I will be appearing on Monday evening to recommend that town attorney be something that is appointed and listed as an
Town planner,
appointment.
if-
And I think that there are other opportunities as well, potentially a town planner, et cetera. And I do think that, I'm going to raise this confusion to the charter revision. for
that
potential
seems like an
clarification.
appropriate course of action. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
that's,
I just,
so
and I
no
welcome
problem.
anybody else on the Board of Selectmen who would like to, we're all also residents, so we can go and we can offer comment.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
The last question sort of fits under that same umbrella as to the first selectman's authority to create ad hocs. I mean, again, you have authority to create different boards, commissions by ordinance, and you have, but as the chief, again, and there's case law to support this, I'll put it into my memo, as the chief administrative and executive officer, there's no prohibition against the first selectman to create advisory, non-binding committees to affect and implement or assist in the implementation of the initiatives that the administration's doing.
Well, I mean, look, it's sort of like the Bill of Rights, right? I mean, I read the charter as being, we have the authority, and therefore, if the first selectman isn't given a more defined authority, then it rests with the Board of Selectmen. And you're saying the reverse. And so, we'll see what the Charter Revision Commission says this time around.
That's the
I mean,
place
I think-
for it, it really is.
I think that's the fair, you know, I differ with the scope of the relevance of the purchasing ordinance, but we certainly
I'm
can
not
take
saying
advantage
that's
of
the end all be
yeah,
all, I mean,
but-
I'm really
but-
pointing to this charter provision to the, given the first selectman
So we
authority.
can seek some clarity
Yeah,
from the Charter Revision, and they may or may not choose to do it. So,
I'd also just like to note that we, as a board, did in fact vote to endorse the hiring of Bertram and Wilson as new town council. So Andrew, you were a part of that.
Yeah,
You voted for it.
not for the re-up of the contract.
Not
No
for-
offense, and this is
No,
awkward, I'm not
it-
saying I
it's-
wouldn't vote
I am not
a
offended
second
at all.
time. I'm
It's a
just
useful
saying,
discussion.
I didn't know, for the second contract, Steve, is what I'm talking about.
You're talking about the second. Just to be clear, we have voted unanimously.
Yes, I
It
remember.
happened.
which is,
It was a recommendation.
Yeah, and that's why
And so
I
if
thought
it was
that was
voted-
the.
But
But that goes-
it wasn't an appointment of the officer, it was an endorsement. So, you know, I think it was
I
a,
don't know if there's a second contract.
What second contract?
Or
Yeah,
a renewal of your contract.
the
The
notion
contract
is.
the contract, and Tony's checking out, but the contract is not, doesn't coincide with the term of our office.
Okay.
No, I
It's not
know,
time.
you had told me
'Cause the
months ago in
practice-
September,
Yeah.
you had given me a date that this was renewed, you re-signed something in like September, I'd have to go back in my notes to find
the
it.
town planner that we had done.
That was a separate thing, that was another
We had done a
thing.
year-long contract with the town
And-
planner.
Letter backing.
Well, I think for me, I was looking at the practice of the Board of Selectmen every year, every 2 years.
Right, I understand that that's what you were looking at.
Yeah.
I was trying to point out that
But
we,
again-
we as a board, you know, endorsed unanimously the hiring of Bertram and Moses per the recommendation of the first selectman at the time. Now, I understand you're bringing up a point of every 2 years, there's been a historical practice of appointing town council as an officer, and what we're hearing is that that's maybe not, for the charter, not actually a necessary practice. So there's been things that have been done that I experienced in the last 2 years that are not necessary, then maybe we should stop doing them because they're not necessary.
Unless the
Some of them
charter
might
is
have been a good
revised to
Some of
make.
them might have, and some of them maybe not.
So, okay. Well,
Thank you.
Well,
see where we go.
So, Mika, I know you reserved 40 minutes for the strategic plan discussion, and we have 30 minutes until TPZ arrives, and we haven't talked about the building committee, so do we need to make a motion to amend the agenda?
We can't, it's a special meeting,
Okay.
so,
We'll take it as it comes.
yeah, we can start the discussion, and certainly the strategic plan in particular is something that we need to discuss further anyway, so it's,
Okay.
we will certainly have it on additional agendas. I'll commit, obviously, to making it on the next agenda regardless.
If you can reserve like 3 minutes, Maria, and I had a suggestion of how we could move it. So,
I'm sorry? in
Yeah.
As
reserve-
part of this.
And before we get to 6:30, give us 3 minutes to
Yes.
suggest next steps.
I'm hoping that we can do the police renovation police committee in less than 20 minutes, so I think that's feasible.
I'll give you a 5-minute warning at
The
6:25.
next,
You got a good
the
Oh, you
next,
got a clock?
the next item on the agenda is the police renovation building committee, and here we in your packet, you have a copy of the charge. We are looking to form a committee of 5 members, with 5 voting members, and then there would be additional non-voting members who would be part of that committee for oversight and input. So to that end, at this point in time, we've identified 2 members of that committee as being Bob Skeletar, who's the chair of the police commission, and Chris Westerfeld, who's a member of the police commission. There was also a candidate that was put forth that we can consider today if we'd like to, and go from there.
I don't think we voted on any of those, right? So can
We have
vote-
not.
Yes,
We
we
have
would
not.
vote, if you
Correct.
want to move forward, we would vote
All 3 of them, correct, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
So to that end, the charge itself is there. The adjustment has been made to last meeting when we introduced the charge. It was indicated that it should have some indication as to working with both the police commission and the board of finance. That was added to the charge. Also added to the charge was the fact that there would be 5 members.
Mika, will we have an opportunity to discuss this charge further, because I do think it needs some further attention. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss.
What I'll ask is that if there's an issue in terms of not being able to get started, we would like to begin work in terms of this building committee.
I understand the sense of urgency, and I'm certainly, in full support of the police department getting the long overdue attention that we all know it needs. But I do want to get this right. Learning, I think, from recent experience, at least from my experience on the board, and I do think there are some key elements missing from this charge. So I'm willing to, right now, move forward with appointments, but I do think the charge needs attention to just ensure success and kind of fiscal responsibility and really transparency.
My question to you is the charge not good enough for us to move forward? Because what I'd like to do is make a motion that we move forward with this charge with an understanding that we can modify the charge based on what you're suggesting. And we can review it for modification at another meeting. But is that clear, or is there, because I guess what I'm asking, Andrea, is what
Yeah.
is in the charge that you feel is prohibited?
Nothing is in the charge that I feel like shouldn't be,
Okay,
but I feel like there are things omitted that should be added.
and what are they?
Authority and an approval signature, for example. The role of the Board of Selectmen in this versus the police commission. Financial control and invoice approval. Budget integrity and funding sources. So I have notes for all of these, but procurement and consultant selection.
We have guidelines for all of that we have to follow as a matter of our code and our charter. So those are, the building committee can't invoice, they can't do some of what you described?
Can they sign?
No.
No,
So can other committees do that
No.
in town?
Sometimes
So I'm confused.
Sometimes if there's a building committee and there's a chair of a building committee or a representative of a building committee, and it's helpful to get their acknowledgement that they have no questions on the invoice or issues that they've uncovered on the invoice, but their signature alone will not allow anything to be paid. Sometimes it's just an acknowledgement that the committee has had no problem with the latest payment application or but when it comes to payment applications, the signature is from the architect. That's the signature that really matters. That's the signature that certifies the application. It's just sometimes helpful that you have to make sure there are no questions, that's all.
So can you, Tony, clarify what points the Board of Selectmen must approve as actions? Anything?
Invoices? So the Board of Selectmen,
Hiring consultants, design phases.
so that's all in
authorizing
accordance with our
bids.
purchasing requirements.
Okay.
So we
which are outlined
follow
in
our,
the code.
right.
Usually these committees will do the work of interviewing prospective contractors, subcontractors, et cetera, and then present recommendations, has been my experience.
Correct.
On
Right.
boards.
Right.
But they present recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. It's the Board of Selectmen that makes the decision.
And who enforces those codes are honored?
The purchasing ones?
Jump to the
All of the, I listed a half a dozen things, and you guys all said there's a code for that. So I don't know which code.
So I'm
Tony,
responsible for making sure that the invoices are signed off by the proper authorities and that there's budget for those invoices and that there's an appropriation for those invoices and that if we are hiring contractors, that the process is followed, that the selectmen or whoever, the proper body has approved the contract or the it comes in front of you as an agenda item.
So if the project cost ends up exceeding the initial appropriations in the contract, what is the process?
We have to get additional appropriations through our appropriations process.
So through your funding requests?
Yeah, through the normal monthly funding request, correct.
So that would be authorized by the board?
Correct.
And Board of Finance. Tony, can I back up?
Sure.
How much money do we have already?
For
For
police?
this initial
So there-
hiring of an architect?
The
engineer?
capital budget process last year, for the current year, it's actually, put $50,000 in for the first phase of, of the project. At that time, it
There's
was,
50,000 in the current approved budget.
correct.
is what you're
So at
saying.
that time, it was, the contemplation was that we would have a new facility.
Right.
So I'm not sure if 50,000 is what we'd use for a renovation, but we'll see. We have some proposals.
So they have come back to us looking at the RFQs and then.
Correct, so we have the RFQs, I just haven't distributed them
Yeah,
until you appoint the committee.
and then we'll see
And then
what,
whoever's on that committee will get those
and then
RFQs.
we'll see what the dollar amount really
Correct.
is. Okay,
Right.
okay. I can say, I also have some questions about this. I think there's some lack of clarity as you go through it. Is the process of going to the public, for example, for bonding, which is an important step in this process. I know that that may not be a task directly of a building committee, but I think it's good for the building committee to understand what the processes are and everybody else have that be transparent. But I'm okay if we go ahead and go forward with this, with the understanding what we're approving is the building committee to be created and for it to complete task one.
And I just want to mention
And then
one
clarify.
sense of urgency here
Yeah.
is that the heating and air conditioning at the facility is in borrowed time.
Yes.
And so we don't want another season to go by
I
and risk a
totally agree.
problem. Yeah.
No, that's why I'm saying, but
And what
we
I'll-
could just, at the next full committee, maybe we could, I'd be happy to give some suggested edits.
What-
just to-
Additionally, what I would suggest along both your points is that we can add at the bottom something to the effect that the building committee will adhere to all town codes and policies and purchasing requirements
Okay.
That could be a
Just
good
to-
addendum for any kind of
for any,
charge.
for any of the
Yeah.
charges.
That
So
would be-
that, just
That
to make
would
sure
be
that everybody
good. I
understands,
appreciate
which
that.
would incur, which would also include bonding, Amy, et cetera.
Right,
So,
right.
so I'll make a motion that we,
Oh, I'm so sorry, can I just ask one more question?
please.
What do you foresee in this charge, because it's not addressed here, but like the role of the building committee versus staff?
The non-voting members versus the members, you mean? Or voting members?
Like the distinction between the committee's role and the administrative authority, I guess, is really, particularly in directing consultants or managing the day-to-day work. So it's really your
So
authority.
Typically, the staff participates in discussion, in dialogue, in updates at the building committee meetings, but when it comes to actually making a decision,
Yeah,
the building committee is the only one that has the authority to do that.
Okay.
To recommend a progress point or,
To direct a change.
right, direct a
Right.
change or something of that nature.
and
From my
they-
perspective, I don't even attend most of the building committee meetings.
Okay,
It's something that is brought to my attention, but it's not something that it is the administrative officer and finance director who are more engaged in the building committee activities than the first selectman.
I know I would appreciate, frequent updates and engagement with the Board of Selectmen on these projects to just ensure, to help
What I-
ensure things are on track and staying within the
What I-
financial scope.
What I suggest in that case
Yeah,
is that you let me know through an email to me and Allison when you want an update. I can't, there's too many things happening to be able to identify everything that needs to be updated.
I mean, when that update should come to the Board of Selectmen.
When you would like an update for the Board of Selectmen on something, if something significant happens, we, obviously, anything to do with dollars and anything that's required, we take care of.
And at every building committee meeting, we discuss the budget, if there's a contingency, how much is in the contingency, there's always a financial discussion at building committee meetings. So we're more than welcome to have them here as well if you're interested.
Right, and well, we've seen updates, in recent projects like the firehouse building training shed storage. We've gotten updates on that throughout its process, and similarly the community cultural center, we've gotten updates throughout. So this would be a similar thing where we would see updates throughout as needed.
So you'd like, I will make a motion that we create a police renovation building committee consisting of 5 voting members, a non-voting membership of Police Chief Ron Smith, Building Officer Nigel Light, and Administrative Officer, Finance Director for the moment, Tony Genovese, and as well as a Board of Finance liaison and a Board of Selectmen liaison. Wasn't there gonna be both? Or was there just gonna be Board of Finance?
We originally said Board of Finance, I don't
That's
remember
fine,
saying.
and a Board of Finance liaison.
Mhm.
Okay. And that we task them initially with the construction parameters that are specified here, and that they can go forward with the first task, right? And the second, which is to make recommendations based on in accordance with the RFQs. And that's the motion, and then the Board of Selectmen can take up the remainder of the charge after we've got some clarifying language. Would that work, Mika? So you're moving forward with the building committee, it's moving forward with its construction parameters and
Are we s-
tasks 1 and 2, but to the extent that there's any edits that folks want to offer for the remainder of the language, we can finish that up next time
Don't do that.
on
So
the
we can get
8th.
an architect, that's the important thing
So you're good?
Yeah.
I second that motion.
here. Just need people.
Does that work? Get us to go forward?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes,
Well,
Thank you.
From Tony's perspective,
yes.
that works.
That's what I'm trying to be helpful.
Yes, that's very helpful, thank
What
you.
is it, what is,
But that's,
there is a
we'll
second?
see if
What
there's
is
a
the
second or
discussion
not.
here?
I'm just,
There was a
Yeah,
second.
there was
I
a
didn't mean
second.
second.
it's okay.
So, I understand what you're getting at here. My understanding, at least from what I heard from Andrea, and concerns on this were, what you'd like to see in addition are things that exist in our charter in terms of, and our code in terms of purchasing policies. In the interest of efficiency, I think this charge works, and I prefer to move forward with the full charge as written, including the 5 voting members and the non-voting members as described.
So
I don't see a need to, if we only do part of the charge, we will definitely have to come back and address it. I think this charge is satisfactory
Which
as
is-
is.
Okay, so,
What
so I
that-
get that,
that's what
needs
Steve.
to be done.
I'm suggesting that because I actually have several edits myself. Such as, clarifying that there'll be a presentations to the public, clarifying who other relevant stakeholders were, which is a gobbledygook language that I'd like to understand at least what people are thinking. That there's gonna be a process that once the Board of Selectmen makes the award, right, the committee has to work with the selected firm, that's not specified. So it could just be a little bit more precise, in terms of what the steps are. In fairness to, one of our colleagues' concerns as well as mine, I just am trying to offer a compromise here to get us moving forward, but to assure that there will be an opportunity for further discussion and edits at our next meeting.
So there was a motion and a second.
Yeah, we're having discussion.
So
So you wanted to limit it to tasks 1 and 2, as you have it on there.
Yeah, but that gets us going, and then we'll just start,
Why, is there an issue with number 3?
with 3.
I'm kind of
So,
with Steve only
so,
because I'm
so,
not seeing
then
that.
there's a gap, because it just says they refer it to the Board of Selectmen. But it doesn't say, once the Board of Selectmen selects the firm, makes the reward, whatever is the proper language, then the committee will work with the selected firm to analyze per what's up above, the needs of the construction parameters. But there has to be an analysis, right? They're not gonna just do that all on their own, they're gonna have some assistance with the architect in analyzing what's needed, et cetera.
I thought that was in point 3. I do understand the clarification about other relevant stakeholders, and I think that's completely fair. Because I think there also should be consultation regarding,
But there's
meeting
nothing
the
to,
designs, but I thought, in my read, I felt that point was, that then they would work with whatever firm is selected to present a fully vetted construction design plan and cost estimation to the Board of Selectmen.
It doesn't say who they work with, except Police Commission, the Board of Finance, and the other relevant stakeholders. The selected architect engineering firm is not mentioned in step 3.
I guess they were, I guess I.
I'm just sorry.
Yeah, no, you're
Just
right.
try to be clear.
It is not clear, I guess in the to develop is, in the verb, I guess it was implying that that was the firm that was to developing it, but it's fair that it's not.
Look, these are language edits. I'm not trying to be difficult here. I just think I'm trying to make it clear.
Well,
It's a big deal.
From my perspective, there's no harm. I don't think any of us would say there's any harm in trying to make it more clear, and that's
Yeah.
fine. My feeling is, what I would suggest, maybe for other meetings going forward, is that those suggestions please be forwarded to my executive assistant, so that they can be incorporated or shared with the other members, so that when we're discussing it, we can make a decision, so we don't have to have another meeting to simply, this will be the third time we go forward with trying to develop a charge for a building committee.
I think
your ideas are good
there has
ones.
been confusion, Mika. Originally, this was billed as a strategic planning meeting, and I did not understand that there was urgency with the Board of Selectmen, with the Police Commission. I didn't know that the RFPs were out until a couple of days ago. I did not have a time to offer edits. I apologize, but I will certainly do that in advance of our meeting on the 8th, so everybody.
I appreciate it. We need to move forward with this. I'd like to, unless there's other comments, Steve?
So I just want to be clear in your motion that you noted that there were 5 voting members. I
Yes,
heard you,
yes.
5 voting
I heard you
members.
say the non-voting members, so 5 voting members.
The 5 voting members, the
And
non-voting membership, and
so-
administrative assisted listed, the construction parameters listed, and the first 2 tasks.
Great.
So I'll ask that we please provide those additional details so that they can be considered by the other members of the board. We will have this, the final draft for our next meeting, and hopefully we won't have to have a lot of discussion since we've already had that, and we can move forward. So unless there's any other comment, I'd like to call for a vote.
Yep.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. You're welcome. Thank you.
But we have to do the appointments.
And now I'd like to,
Yes, the next item on the agenda is for us to do appointments, and we'll start by my nominating Bob Scalatar as member of the Police Department Building Committee.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And he's from the Police
He is
Commission.
chair of
Chair.
Chair of
the
the Police Commission, for
Thank you.
clarification.
Thank you for the public. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd also like to nominate Chris Westerfeld, a member of the Police Commission, as a second member of the Building Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. And then I believe there is another,
Yeah, I'd like to move that Barbara Fabiani be appointed to this
Second.
committee. Thank you. And
that was the,
It's in our packet.
That was
yeah,
resume that
sorry,
was added to
we
the
got
packet,
it
yep.
late. She got
So-
approval. She works for the state.
Right,
And
understood.
she reviews architectural proposals for a living, and actually had involvement with our public works
Yeah.
Right, she was
garage,
correct.
which I didn't know.
Yeah, she was, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, she did that professionally, so.
Are there any other questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries. I just want to end by saying there are 2 other additional members that will be added to fill out the 5. We will look to have those names for the next meeting so that we can complete this in its entirety.
Mika, do we also have to identify the Board of Finance member?
Yes, we do.
And will that be next?
We'll send an email out copying the Board of Selectmen here to the Board of Finance Chair and asking them to please appoint someone as a member of this.
So the
as a
Board of
non-voting
Finance is gonna appoint their
Oh,
liaison?
Liaison,
It's up to them.
correct.
Yeah.
Any other, if you don't mind? Thanks, Tony.
So if I could, Mika, we, in our role as members of the Strategic Planning Committee,
Mhm.
you were there at the beginning of the meeting, had
Yes.
to leave, Maria and I completed it. We have a work in progress here, but we did discuss before we adjourned, at least presenting to you all the possibility that if you would like to look at what's in the draft and send individual comments to Allison, as is allowed per FOIA, then we have another meeting on March 31st. and we could at least take a look at what everybody had offered in terms of comments and try to keep working on this document, seeing where there was need for further discussion, where there was agreement, consensus, and present that April 8th. That would help to keep
I can
moving
upload
along.
the feedback to that folder so everyone has a chance to get to look at each other's
Yeah, that's
feedback
fine.
ahead of time as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
that would be great,
Happy to.
thank you. And then we can work on trying to integrate it.
Yes,
And-
happy to, that way everyone has a couple.
August 31st.
The strategic
Oh.
planning. And just
But we had a
to,
meeting on the 3rd.
yeah, no, and just to give the board some background, we've been working with, the master plans that have been developed over the past couple of years, the POCD, our boards and commissions, to find out what we are working on, what goals we have, and trying to put them all together in this document for our consideration. So that you have some information to decide what our priorities are.
I will just say from at first glance, it seems like we're all working very well together and putting together, laid out some really good goals for us. So I'm excited to see this come to
I
fruition.
appreciate it. And I apologize that unfortunately our time isn't going to allow us to get into the memo that you have provided. That's something obviously we do want to have discussion on.
Do you?
So it's something we will be having discussion on and have had discussion on anyway, so I think it's, taking it as, it's something we will do. So
So when? In April?
we'll try to get in April.
I would expect it in April, please. I mean,
I think it
Well,
fits
that's part of
in-
the
it
strategic
fits-
plan,
It fits
yeah.
into the strategic plan.
It does.
It's all about what our priorities should be.
It does.
So it will be part of the discussion. One way or another, whether it's flagging the memo or not. The issues
So I
will be
appreciate
brought
it. That
It
was
will
our,
be it will be in the strategic planning discussion, absolutely.
our next agenda item is for our joint meeting with TPZ. I'll just suggest that we take a couple minute recess to get everybody organized and also let everyone know Tony is not going to be part of that meeting, so
I'm handing the minute taking over to the TPZ clerk.
we'll recess for a little while. Matt.
I was like,
Michael, how are you?
There you go. All set for you, mate.
Folks, we're gonna get started, so I'll ask that everybody just calm down, let's sit down, and we're getting ready to get started again.
Could you explain to us why you guys have titles and nobody else does?
Oh, we do?
Yeah, I like your titles.
We'll
We
work
can
on
get
it.
creative.
I'd like chief of the cheap
The rest of
seats.
us don't even get names on it.
Paul,
What do they
when the
complain
people
about?
vote for you, you can have a title, all right?
Okay, everybody, we're gonna call the meeting to order again. We're, from Board of Selectmen standpoint, we are resuming our previously started meeting. So we're continuing, and I'd turn it over to the Town Plan and Zoning Chair, Jeff Kennedy, to open up the TPZ portion of the meeting.
Sure, Mika, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, thanks for all being here, and welcome to a special meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission. I call it to order on Wednesday, March 25, 2026, at about 6:40. My name is Jeff Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission with us tonight include Aaron Hoffman, vice chair, Dr. Boncherry, Jim Horowitz, Matt Edwards may be joining us a little bit later. We have Mel Medina with us, Paul Schatz, who's the commission secretary, Rob McClure, and Dr. Wisdom. Thank you, commissioners, for being with us tonight. Appreciate it so much. This evening, we are joined by and supported by our very able town attorney, Mr. Nick Bamonte, who's sitting directly across from me, Mr. Mike D'Amato, who is, where's Mike? He is
Over there.
There he is. Hi,
Next to
Mike.
Nick.
Next to Nick. Good evening, thank you for joining us. And as always, our very able and helpful Chris Sullivan, our land use analyst, who's at the end, sitting at the end of the table. Thank you, Chris. We're meeting tonight in person at the Center Building on Meeting House Lane, and our agenda this evening is available on the town website. This evening is organized as a joint meeting between TPZ and the Board of Selectmen, so we're actually inserting a meeting inside of the Board of Selectmen's evening and their meeting tonight. And joining us as well, in addition to the Board of Selectmen, is the Economic and Development Commission, the Housing
Members up.
Commission.
Members up.
Members of, thank you. Yeah, not the whole commission, sorry, thank you. The Conservation Commission, the Sustainability Committee, and the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Properties. I'd like to draw your attention to 3 documents that the Town Planning and Zoning brings to your attention, which are publicly available. Those are on our website, and those documents include our Plan of Conservation and Development, the zoning regs for the Town Plan and Zoning Commission, the zoning regs, if you will, for the town of Woodbridge. And finally, we've added another document. It's got a long name to it, but it's called the Connecticut Council of Government Summary of House Bill 8002, also known as Special Act 25-1, and that particular document is from the Council of Governments, and it includes a lot of data and so forth about a recently passed state legislation and package and act that will be affecting us in our town planning and zoning activity. Tonight, during the next 60 to 90 minutes, we'll see how long Paul Schatz speaks, but it's about 60 to 90 minutes long. We're going to do 3 things, or sort of 3 data points. First, the agenda is published, it's publicly, but what we're going to do is we're going to divide this up into sort of 3 sections. The first is we have some folks from different commissions that may be here, some members of those commissions. And what I'm going to do is, in order, I'm going to just call on them and have them tell us maybe a little bit about what they do, any thoughts that they have about town planning and zoning in this state of, in the town of Woodbridge, and if they've maybe started to review the new legislation that has come out that is cited in our public agenda. So those commissions tonight include Board of Selectmen, Economic Development Commission, the Housing Commission, the Conservation Commission, Sustainability Committee, and the Commission on the Use of Public-Owned Properties. So I thought what we would do is have sort of like a 5-minute interaction where the person or persons from that committee maybe talks a little bit about what they do. There could be a little bit of dialogue. Then the next point of the 3 points that we're going to work on tonight, the next point will be a discussion regarding required zoning changes that we have to do as a result of that act. And that act takes effect on Well, it's in effect now, isn't it, Mike? It's in effect now, right? Okay. But by July 1st, 2026, there's certain things that get triggered in that act. And the TPZ may need to make some changes to our regs based on that. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is opportunity housing regulations in section 3.4. So I allocated about a half an hour for those of you who are also planning, with the two different commissions and so forth. So this will be about 60 to 90 minutes. Okay? All right, so going back to the first thing, we're going to commence with some commissions. Is anybody from the Board of Selectmen, would they like to make any comments? Mika, you want to start off with that? Select somebody to speak, or?
Is there anything in particular that any of our members board members would like to?
I just would, a heads up that I have questions about the law, section 16, and why it's applicable and to what areas and all of that, so.
Sure.
Lots of questions.
Okay.
From the board's perspective, what I'll say is that we're interested in collaborating as often as necessary, and certainly more than we have in the past as relates to our zoning where it comes to planning. Recognizing that obviously there's a limitation in terms of what we can do when there's applications, et cetera. I think what we need to do is make sure that there's an open line of communication, and we understand both from the town perspective and what our residents are looking for, in terms of what we're looking to do from a zoning perspective and how we can help.
Sure. Anybody else on the Board of Selectmen like to make a comment? Okay, this will be a good meeting. All right, but Amy, just real quick, can you distill a little bit about the comment that you had? Because possibly Nick or Mike would comment on it.
Sure. So I've read the Connecticut COG summary, which probably doesn't surprise my new members, colleagues on the Board of Selectmen. One of the first questions I have was to be sure that section 16 of the Public Act 25-1 applies, and exactly to where it applies, because the COG summary on page 27 says it's applicable to any lot that is zoned for commercial or mixed-use development. And it also says on that page that the interpretation of section 16 is ambiguous, so you should consult with your municipal council. So that would be where I would start, because it's not just, it doesn't, from my understanding, it's not a slam dunk. Then I have questions about whether we can limit the height, the number of stories of mixed use. Can we add requirements or carrots, such as tax incentives, to incorporate affordable housing units into a mixed use development? And can we require sidewalks, buried utilities, and other improvements that have been recommended in a document that you've received from Conservation Commission?
Yes.
And as well, note that when TPZ does this work, there are placemaking studies from 2023. All of them are in here. I'm sure you all have them in one way or another. And there are a lot of recommendations for the business district, so this is an opportunity for you to not only do what the law requires, but look what else you can do and should do to make it as good as possible based on these placemaking studies, based on the recommendations of the Conservation Commission, et cetera.
Amy, I appreciate your framing that. Those are many of my questions as well. And if you look on the agenda, all right, for example, what exactly is a transit community middle housing development, and how are these defined a little bit? So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes after we cycle through the commission. But those are very helpful. Our town attorney heard you say all those things. He's memorized them and typed it into his computer, and he'll be able to respond, right?
Right.
Okay. But this is a good framing, because this is what the commission is doing, and it's a little complicated.
Yeah.
It is. All right, thank you. Anybody, any commissioners to the board?
I think we've used our 5 minutes.
You did, yeah. Any commissioners have a question on my TPZ for the BOS? Our TPZ? Any commissioners? Okay, so next up is the Economic Development Commission.
Hey everyone, I'm Chai, filling in for Cliff, joined by Scott Hunter, we're from the Economic Development Committee. The committee is obviously charged with improving the economic status of the town. We support local businesses. We work to help identify new businesses to come into town. We also need to identify ways we can work with TPZ and identify regulation changes that will encourage mixed use in various areas and help support housing that would also support businesses coming into the town. So broad brush for EDC to cover everything from zoning to new development of businesses, or attracting new businesses and helping retain current businesses, amongst other things.
So thank you for being here tonight. So, a procedural comment. So if EDC is looking, or has a developer, or has somebody that wants to come in for any type of thing, right? Review our regs and so forth with the attorneys from the folks, and let us know if you need an adjustment to the regs, or you feel that's coming to us, send us a letter. Send it to Chris Sullivan, it'll come to us, and that way we have communication so that, if you have somebody come in, we'll find out about it, and if you think you need to modify regs or something like that, let us know. Because we do want to see development in the town of Woodbridge, we want to expand tax rolls, expand some options, so please feel free to do that. So are you guys out there actively looking to bring people into the town, or tell me what your activities are?
Actively, I would say no. Right now, we're kind of trying to establish where the town stands in terms of what businesses we have currently in town, what industries we can support, what segments we can support, and seeing what, like you just said, where we can start making some recommendations so we can bring in various industries that may benefit from the population of the town, the education of the town. So right now, still kind of building that understanding.
Good, but Woodbridge is open for business, right? Come to the EDC.
Of course, yes.
Okay.
We do plan on coming to the TPZ with our recommendations for
Yeah.
various zoning.
Thank you, yeah, appreciate it. All right, any commissioners, TPZ have any comments or questions? Okay, Conservation Commission, Mike. Thank you for your letter. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mike Conservation. I'm the newer member of the Conservation Commission, representing the commission here tonight. Barbara is also here. So we've submitted a letter with some specific recommendations on how kind of development can proceed while still maintaining the spirit of conservation, which is a big backbone of our town. It's very clear that our town values the open spaces and the natural resources that make up Woodbridge, while acknowledging that development is a reality. And so mostly I'm here tonight to learn about these changes that we're facing as a town, and to see how the Conservation Commission can support and frame those initiatives.
Thank you for your letter, we received today, we appreciate it, we'll read it and take a look through it. As zoning regs change or as there may be a change that's out there, there's public comment on anything and so forth, please come before our commission when we have hearings. We think a dialogue is helpful to the town, it benefits everybody that lives here, and it benefits what we all have here together in Woodbridge. Thank you for coming tonight, Mike, and thank you for your comments. Any commissioners have a question or a comment for Mike from the Conservation?
Barbara, would you like a seat at the table?
Would I like
Housing
to-
is also there.
Because I have to leave very quickly,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Andrew.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
She's
it's
here,
okay.
so-
No, I wanted this meeting to be this way. This was good. All right. So, Mike, thanks again for coming. Thanks for your letter. We'll all read it, and we appreciate it very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, someone here from the Sustainability Committee.
Hillary Drum?
Hillary, come sit on here.
Yes.
I'm Hillary Drum from the Sustainability Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Welcome.
having us.
Yeah.
So much like conservation, we deal with a lot of the natural resources, but also all resources in Woodbridge, and really keeping in mind how to keep things balanced and efficient, really moving forward.
So does conservation and sustainability, do you guys work together? Do you have
We do at times,
common
yeah.
meetings, or how does that work? So that we know.
We deal with different parts of things as well, so I would say, well, conservation, can correct me if I'm wrong, deals with a lot more of like the conserving and the natural resources of the town.
Sure.
Whereas sustainability deals with energy things and it's much more all-encompassing in a lot of the initiatives from Sustainable CT. So that can cover things from housing and homelessness to energy, solar panels, housing density, a lot of the economic things
Communications.
as well, communications,
Yeah.
education. It's a much, I would say, broader sort of situation.
Well, thank you very much for letting us know that. And how often do you guys, well, a lot of commissions meet once a month.
Once a
Is that what you do? You meet about once a month? Okay.
To clarify, Chairman, it's
Sure.
Sustainability Committee.
Committee, my
Ad hoc.
mistake. Yes, I
Ad
had
hoc
that.
committee, it's not a
Thank you,
commission,
Andy.
so-
Thank you,
so-
appreciate that. So, thanks, you meet once a month, thank
We
you.
do.
All right. Thank you for coming tonight and for participating, we appreciate what you do for the town, and thank you very much, appreciate it. All right,
Thank you.
any questions for sustainability?
Jeff, I have a question. This is like TPC's meeting?
It's TPC's meeting inside of the VOS meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
So I would, like, when I swore my oath, I
Yeah.
went to like that little office.
Yeah,
So I said, what's one piece of advice to the people that were there?
yeah.
And they said, don't look at your phone and pay attention in the meetings.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna suggest we all take that advice.
Oh, yes, it is a good advice, it's good advice. I do look at my phone, but most of
No, I'm not
the time
talking to
I'm
you, I'm talking to
Oh, okay.
a lot of people that are on their phones and
All right.
their computers right now.
I
So-
appreciate that, appreciate that, okay.
Well,
So-
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right. So we have one more, let me see, commission, okay, so that commission would be the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Properties. So, you're up, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I apologize, I had to check my phone, I have a child at the high school, so I apologize.
And can you
for
just
that.
announce your name
I am
clearly
paying
and loudly?
attention.
Thank you.
My name is Nicole Donzello. I'm the chair of the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Property. We are charged with making recommendations to the Board of Selectmen on the use of publicly owned property. That's the title of the commission. We are not a decision-making authority. That is specifically for the Board of Selectmen's job to do regarding our recommendations. We've currently been engaged in reviewing all of the, I'll call them eligible classified properties within town to determine whether or not they are properly being used and whether or not they can help the town meet initiatives as we move forward. That could be anything from economic development to agricultural use to further conservation to the Greenway expansion plan and all the way to housing. So we have made, we're almost complete with our recommendations. We have about 4 properties left. We will be in touch regarding, and most likely the Board of Selectmen maybe as well, regarding some town-owned properties that may be utilized to assist us in the 8002 realm. We just had a meeting this week, myself and the First Selectman and Amy, with Habitat for Humanity, which may be a possibility for a few of our properties. So 2 are deed restricted single family, not so much for a zoning issue per se. Another is a larger parcel that may need some assistance with TPZ.
All right. How many town properties are owned by the town? You may have said, but, you know.
Oh, I feel I'm gonna fail this test. I don't
It's
have
not
an
a
exact
test, it's
number
all
for
written.
you.
Okay.
I can get that to you, but we do have many. They are divided into 4 categories. And I'm referencing category 3, that is a category of property, it's kind of like a catch-all category, I'd call it. So those are the ones that we're reviewing that they're not necessarily assigned to any particular board or commission, weren't obtained as a result of a grant, which would be category 1, and they don't fall within category 4, which are those that are right of first refusal, that are actually owned by entities such as the state or regional water authority or things of that nature.
So how did the town get most of these properties? Is it different
it-
everywhere? Like bequeathed or?
Sometimes,
Okay.
sometimes foreclosures, sometimes they're gifted, sometimes they're part of a subdivision, mandatory gift, for lack of better words, in the town. Thank you, set aside, thank you.
Set aside.
See, I need my notes on my phone and I don't.
So some of this is set aside forever for you can never develop on it, right? Some of
Those-
it is, like, some of it is never
Those in particular, those are deed restricted to be conserved open space in connection to that particular scenario. Some are deed restricted open space. That's why we're very limited in the properties after we've conducted our review that actually could even be considered as a possibility for any type of use other than open space, whether it's topography issues, environmental issues, wetland soils, things of that nature, or deed restrictions for conservation.
So how many properties are owned by the town? I think you said 4, but how many properties are potentially owned by the town and could potentially be developed on as part of a town development project for anything?
We have 2 single-family lots. We have the CCW. We have we identified 312 Rimmon Road, and we identified the theater lots, as people refer to them, which is a paper road of Forest Road. That also encompasses a property on Pease Road, which is the paper road that gains access to the theater lots. So those are the only identified properties in town as of now that can be potentially looked at for housing.
Would the town ever potentially develop those properties and continue to still own the property? Like, would you do a lease for 20 years? This is being Board of Selectmen.
Well, if you go, I learned this on
Tuesday.
Tuesday. I learned this yesterday.
All right.
If we utilize, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, if we utilize Habitat for Humanity, no, that would be a sale or a gift to Habitat for Humanity. That would go to a town vote at a town meeting. But yes, we do have certain leases in town. I believe Lucy Street is one of those properties in the business district. And I also want to indicate too, for the business district piece, we also have properties in the business district that we own, but because of topography issues, you really cannot do much with it. But we are looking to work with Trailmaster. One of my commission members is very involved in that, to connect the greenway into the business district to kind of, to have traffic, lack of a word, bicycle traffic and hiking into the business district to hopefully, ignite more need and demand for restaurants and coffee shops and things of that nature. So.
And if the town were to sell a property, anything that we sell, we have to get a public vote for it, right? Like, that's a referendum first.
It's a town meeting.
Special town meeting.
Special town meeting, okay.
Which
So
the Board of Selectmen can
Cool.
go to a referendum.
say that last part
Board of
again.
Selectmen can adjourn a town meeting and elect to instead have the voters come to a referendum.
Okay, no, it's very interesting. Okay, thank you very much, we appreciate it.
I'll get that number for you.
You know I'm on your commission,
Yeah.
technically. It's a little weird how that works, but I guess TPC chair is automatic thing.
Oh, that's another thing, yes, it
Yes,
just
it
reminded
is.
me of that. We do have ex officio members on our commission.
Yes.
One is supposed to be from TPZ and the other from Conservation. Barbara, who's in the back, is always there. She's great. She has all the history of the town. I love it, and is very helpful. So it'd be very helpful for us as we move forward regarding zoning to have a our ex officio on our commission, so that when we have questions regarding zoning issues, for example, 312 Rimmon is within a public watershed, which is problematic, we can talk about that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your comments. Any commission?
Thank you. There's 102 town-owned properties.
Thank you.
It just came to me, just like that.
That's actually quite a few. That's quite a few. And at the end of the meeting, can you just announce what percentage of the total land mass of Woodbridge that is, please?
Give me a minute.
Oh my goodness, all right. Any commission members have any questions for? Okay, and Mika, did you have a comment or anything about?
No, I thought you were going for another commission, and not seated at the table is housing commission behind you, I just want to point that out.
Okay, so the housing?
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot to say because, as you probably know, we originally had an ad hoc committee. We wrote a 96-page report that got turned in on time with lots of help from Chris. She was very instrumental in giving us information. But we've had a 3-month hiatus. And so we've turned from a committee into a commission. We had our first meeting last week. So we're very much in a formulation stage, a learning stage. This new legislation is quite...
it's going to impact you guys.
It's going to impact us a lot, and there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So really, that's where we are now. We've just had one meeting as a commission.
Oh.
It's wonderful to see everybody together.
Elaine, come up
Your
here.
name and your role?
Elaine Feldman,
Thank you.
and
Are
I
you
live on
chair?
Jeff Street. Does that give me any credit?
Yeah, don't say the name. Yeah. No, that's
And I'm very, for years, we have tried very, very hard to make this kind of thing happen, recognizing that you can't work in a silo when you're dealing with housing or almost any other issue. Amy came to a lot of our meetings with lots of helpful information. And I just think it's great that people are talking to one another. It's going to take a village or two or three to get this done. So this is great.
Thank you.
Well, come join us up at the table if you want.
Yeah,
Oh,
Wayne,
no,
do you
I'm
want to
up
sit
here.
over there?
Chair here.
No, I'm good, I'm fine.
Just, I'd like to piggyback off of that and thank you. Amy, myself, and Mika are on the Board of Selectmen Strategic Planning Committee. So I think this is incredibly helpful to hear from lots of the boards and commissions, and we're taking some notes so that, you know, when we're looking at our tactics and action items, we can, you know, talk about some of these things that the committees are reporting out. So I appreciate that very much.
I appreciate it. All right, so listen,
Jeff,
thank.
I just want to note that
Please.
Mary Dean is also
Also.
here from the Housing Committee.
Would you like to say
You
something?
want to add anything, Mary?
No, not really. As Elaine said, we are the successor to the Affordable Housing Committee that was formulated in 2021 to write the Affordable Housing Plan, which has now officially been retired. But if you look at it, you'll see that it contains a great deal of useful information, some of it directly relating to what's going on here tonight. One of our 6 recommendations for housing for this town of Woodbridge was to develop the business district with mixed-use housing as well as business. It's taken all this time.
Well, that's about to happen.
Get some momentum there, but we're central to all of this. I've only heard this information 3 times, so I needed about 3 times more to even get a good handle on it. But come to us if you have any questions or want to collaborate in any way. That's what we want to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, so that concludes the first session of our meeting this evening with the TPZ. All right, so that was some collaborative discussion, just transparent discussion that we had. We're going to move into the second one now. We could be here for hours talking about all these different issues and going on, but I hope everyone has a sense that they're being heard and that there's some transparency here and that we're all working together. So the next bullet point to move to right now, if you will, are this. So in the new legislation, Act 25-1, there are some required zoning changes to be made by July 1st, 2026. Now, those are my notes to myself. I'm not even sure how much we have to change our zoning. Mike's gonna help us with that a little bit in a minute and go over that. But effective July 1st, 2026, there are some changes that automatically happen as a result of the Public Act. So Mike, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about specifically things that are happening on that July 1st date. Because while there's many things we might want to do in town or have different views of, this is a state mandated situation where it's just going to happen. And Amy framed some of this earlier, but maybe you could talk please a little bit about the act and what it does and where it does that in town and what parts of town, and maybe define a little bit mixed use development and the transit community middle market housing development. Maybe you could take all that from me, because that's a mouthful.
Yeah, so I'll take some of it and then defer to Nick on some of those things, and so I'll say one thing, confuse you, and then he'll correct me and bring everybody around. So, as of July 1, the only thing that happens is that the town, through the commission, TPZ, is in a position of having to consider the path to approval for certain projects in a different way. So this is not what we dealt with previously, where we're having to make decisions about opting out of provisions and all of those things. If we do nothing, and someone comes in with a development that falls within the requirements or the definitions in the act, we still have to go through the process as defined within the language. So it's to our benefit to make decisions and have conversations about if we should change the regulations. But we don't need to change the regulations to make this legislation sort of active. It will happen.
It's active now. It will be active on July 1st immediately, even if we make no changes.
Right. So the focus of much of the discussion is around the idea of what's called summary review. And so essentially, I'm going to look at my notes because otherwise I won't read it correctly. there are two developments which are defined in the act. One is a transit community middle housing development, which is defined as a residential building containing not less than 2 dwelling units, but not more than 9 such units, including but not limited to townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, perfect sixes, and cottage clusters. The important takeaway with that is 2 to 9 units, and to not be confused with the idea that because it has transit in the name, it has anything to do with transit.
That was confusing.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Right? So-
It's,
Correct.
throw that out the window. So just assume 2 to 9 units. That's really the key takeaway with all of this.
Now, Mike, this is
So, Mike,
only in commercial areas?
That's what I was gonna ask.
So then,
Yeah, right, I mean,
Yeah.
this is only, because we have residential A, which is
Yep.
most of the town.
Yep.
And then we have some sections of the map.
yes.
So where does this apply on our map thinking about it?
So I'm gonna get there. The next piece is, the other type of development is mixed-use development, which is defined as a development containing both residential and non-residential uses within a single building. And so the act says essentially, if someone comes in with one of these developments, we have to allow it by summary review on any lot zoned for commercial or mixed use. That's what it says.
Okay, no, stop right there.
Yep.
So like, sometimes when an application comes in, sometimes it's just TPC looking at it, sometimes we have to have like a public hearing, it's a special exception.
Yep.
So summary review, can you just define that a little bit?
Yes. So summary review, is the language that again comes out of the act is it's able to be approved in accordance with the terms of a zoning regulation or regulations, including but not limited to requirements concerning setbacks, lot size, building frontage, etc., without requiring a public hearing to be held, a variance, a special exception, a special permit, etc. So the key with this is the process is non-discretionary. So it could be something that is approved by staff, it could be something that the commission reviews, but it's an administrative review, so there is no discretion. The standards that you will use to determine if something complies are essentially yes or no review standards.
Okay. And will we decide as a commission if we want to review it, or is the state deciding that? How does that happen?
So it does not speak to.
That might be more than that.
Yeah, there's nothing in the bill that says it has to go to the ZEO, it has to go to the town plan. It's the process. And so the purpose of tonight is to really start honing in on if we need to think about more standards or what standards we should be considering. So for example, we had the discussion about sidewalks, we talked about all these other building design requirements.
Right.
So if they fall within, if we can develop a standard which essentially makes it yes or no, does it, or do all the units have direct access to the outside? Does the building have some type of, I don't know, is it have the correct?
Their height?
Yes,
Okay.
right, so those
Setbacks
limitations are
from the
very,
sidewalk?
yes,
Okay.
because that review doesn't require discretion, right? You can look at it and you can say, well, the max height is 40 feet and it's 35, good to
So
go,
you
check.
check it off? And
Exactly.
All right,
Yes.
hold on, I want to get Aaron Hawk with you.
Yep.
Okay. Aaron.
So you had mentioned there's two types of development, there's mixed use and then there's the transit community middle market, 2 to 9 units.
Mhm.
Is there a unit limit in the mixed use? Does that apply or that, there's no unit limit? Is there a definition of, I'm just thinking of, we've had recent developments in town that are proposed if there was a 1,000 square foot realtor's office on the ground floor of either of the applications that we've talked about over the course of the past year, does that qualify as mixed use?
Under the definition of mixed use, it would, but it would only be subject to this non-discretionary summary review in our
In a commercial,
commercially zoned district. And I mean, this is why the guidance says talk to your town attorney, because we obviously, I mean, there's a line here, we allow, even in our residential zones, for example, what some might consider a commercial use, like a doctor's office or something like that. That's not where I'm at, because that opens up this to everything. So, I mean, when I look at the way Woodbridge is set up from a zoning perspective, how our districts are zoned, I mean, we're looking at the business industrial, I mean, these are the technical zones that we have in Woodbridge, in addition to the res districts, business industrial, developmental district 1, dev 2, general business, and general business overlay, and those are all sort of in the eastern pocket where 63 and 69 connect down into New Haven. So, I mean, that's the answer to the where question. Mike answered that can we still put some sort of guardrails on these in terms of stories or limitations on height, lot size. I mean, those are the same sort of technical requirements that already exist in your regulations for certain developments, and this would just be applicable to. So the question is, do we want to craft a regulation specific to anticipating this type of an application coming in to any one of these commercial districts along the lines of what sort of guardrails do we want?
I'm thinking we do. We may not have to, but I'm thinking we do. I mean, this isn't gonna all happen tonight as we frame it. Andrew, I saw your hand, I'll get right to you. But this is not something that's very simple. I mean, this is gonna take a little time. This isn't happening tonight, but I want this out there, all the commission, Board of Selectmen hearing about it. We all have to work on this, because this is not simple. I mean, this is, you know, with them coming in to do this process, it's definitely gonna encourage growth. But I just want to be careful that we have some understanding of what's going to happen. Can I just go back a little bit? We're on point.
Good question as well.
Got it. So, this is 1 to 9 units is the immediate.
2 to 9.
Excuse me, 2 to 9 units. Thank you, everyone. So, just want to see if you're paying attention. So this is 2 to 9 units, but not more than that.
No, it could be.
That was my question.
That's where I'm
buckets.
getting confused about this, because
That's
I read the
so-
COG report too.
Sorry. So Aaron asked about this second bucket, okay, mixed-use development. So there's 2 buckets. There's this transit, I'm gonna continue to mix up transit, community, middle, housing. So that's one bucket. That's the 2 to 9 residential units, period. The other bucket is mixed-use development, which is just as broad. It's just a combination of a residential and, what is it called? Non-residential use in a single building. That's how it's defined under the law.
So in that second.
No
bucket-
unit cap on mixed-use
So if
development.
you put a doctor's office in the business district, you could put like 20 units on top of it?
That's what the law says.
Stay on that, but everyone just absorb that for a minute. Andrew, please.
So, thank you. I think many of us in this room have been advocating for mixed use, particularly in our business district and those zones you just mentioned, for quite some time, and more so in recent years. There are established businesses, and EDC might be able to speak to this, that at least I know of, that have wanted to lease or rent apartments on their second floors. We could hit the ground running tomorrow, engaging these business owners who are eager to do the work. And so I guess a question I have is there a way, like this is something we want, is there any harm in incentivizing one of these? And so that, I guess that's my first question. Businesses might need some incentive to do the heavy lifting at first. So that's one of my questions.
I can take that really quick
Yeah,
now.
please.
So just think about that on a completely separate track and divorced from what we're doing here. The answer is yes.
Okay.
I mean, you have separate statutory authority, the Board of Selectmen, frankly, to engage directly with a property owner or a potential property owner and come to a tax relief agreement is what it boils down to.
And so really, but that could only come if the zoning supports having the apartments above the,
Sure.
yeah, the business, the commercial. So I don't know how nuanced it is to establish a zoning regulation that simply allows for, like, is it really that hard
Well,
to just
it's-
allow for resident on like
Well,
mixed
this-
use
Well,
as
this
it's
is the-
defined?
This is what we're doing now.
If we do nothing, July 1st, it's allowed.
Yeah.
Right.
So is that the easier way? Like, is there any harm in
That is
that?
The issue is that someone,
July 1st, it's allowed.
but,
Right,
Yeah.
July 1st, it's allowed.
So then-
It's not if we do nothing, it's allowed July 1st, correct?
if, yeah, or anything, it's allowed. I'm saying, but I think what the issue is,
is a business owner that is interested in putting 3 apartments above their business, which I think a lot of people in the room would be supportive, may also come with another developer and say, I'm gonna put 15 units above, and unless we,
Have parameters.
yes, and I frankly don't know a lot about the commercial zoning laws. It's not something that we've taken a lot of discussion, but what restriction there might be on doing that now, that's what I think we need to focus on. That provision, the 2 to 9 units, you know, it's.
That's
because we
the
have to-
first bucket,
well,
that's easier.
That's easier, and
Right.
also seems to me to be less of a,
Less
there's less of a
demand.
danger if someone, and I would be happy to be proven, not happy to be proven wrong, but if they could tell me that, no, this could be not something we don't want, but we have limited time, given how public hearings work, to do something before July. And so coming into this, it would be my thought that focusing on the mixed-use housing to ensure that we're both incentivizing what I think the majority of the town is interested in, while also making sure that there are reasonable guidelines that would prevent someone in.
Because let me run over all of this. Yeah, and can someone put in like a doctor's office and put 40 stories above it of 50 units? I mean, this is.
I think we have a 3-story cap.
So did you mean like how?
Well, the cap that we presently have restrict that, but the 3 stories where they can put in 20 units?
Correct.
Okay. You've had your hand raised a long time, Ben, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I just want to ask, so my very kind of, basic understanding of this is that the state is going to permit a form of use that our zoning regulations do not currently permit, which is to say residential uses in GB and GBA. Right?
I think res uses, yeah, I don't know if they're allowed at all, but that would be a.
Right, they're not. So to me, this is the hard conflict, right? So the state's now saying, we're going to permit these, and we still have the ability to create these guardrails. We've not previously looked at these zones with an eye on what if this were used for residential development. So it seems to me, it may be that we look at the way that those are currently formulated and say, yeah, these are okay. Or it may be that we look at them and we say, there should be a couple of important tweaks here. But I don't think, it doesn't seem like we need to build these from the ground up. I mean, they exist, 3-story cap, 33% building coverage, 20,000 square feet, et cetera, minimum frontage, et cetera. I think those are already there in our regs. We just have to look at whether there's a way that we feel that we need to anticipate being more consistent across zones so that the changes that come through from the state statute can sort of be implemented in a harmonious way in those areas, right?
In any area that it applies to effective July.
Exactly, right. So if we didn't have the 3-story cap, we'd want to know that there was some sort of cap, so it couldn't be 40 stories above.
Right. I didn't mean to say it like that.
No.
But I'm just saying,
It's
that's
important
what
consideration,
Mike
yeah.
asked to look, you guys have to look at. Mika, did you have a question?
No, actually, Nicole was first.
Nicole, yeah.
When
I
Nick wants
do.
to jump in first, he said,
Yeah.
he said to go after him.
Can I just to
Please.
clarify though, and we were talking like, well, maybe we don't do anything, and this just clicks into place. I mean, for the reasons that Commissioner Cherry just said and others, I mean, it makes some sense to think about the parameters, the technical check boxes that have to be met. But, I mean, the way our regs are set up right now is that when an application comes in for that zone, it's gonna go through probably a special exception process, which includes a public hearing. All of that doesn't happen for these types. So a mandatory change in the reg is gonna have to clarify if you're applying in this zone, like right now, Chris, I mean, we have if
Okay.
you're submitting for a special exception, these are all the things you need to meet. It's gonna take a public hearing. We've gotta carve out of that so that it's clear this non-discretionary review will apply to these types of developments. And I think that's where Mike and I can come in, like with that sort of language, but the guardrails is more of a
Nick, we
use.
have the Toll Brothers, the Toll Brothers, remember that development, we have that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
If they put a store in, okay, let's say they were gonna put in a store.
Sure.
Could they go 3 stories up and over that whole property on both sides?
Is the height limit there 3 stories?
No, but they're separate structures. They're
If it
separate
was
structures.
vacant land, they could build new, I think is what you're asking.
Yes.
Okay,
So-
wait a minute, guys.
Yeah,
Let's
go to
first
Chris, let's go to
focus
Chris.
on what your regs say. The only mixed-use district that you currently have is GBA. Okay? So that's on the west side of Amity Road. That's it. Everything else is technically just commercial. So that's.
So this only
Which is,
applies-
no, let me clarify though. Chris is correct, we only currently have one zone on the books that allows for mixed use. However, this law says it doesn't matter, whether it's used for commercial or mixed use, these two buckets get, a free ride.
Hold on, I understand Chris's point.
What I think my point is that mixed-use development allows no cap, right?
Correct.
So if it's not a mixed-use zone, then they're limited to the 2 to 9 units.
No.
It's if the development itself is mixed use.
Well, what Chris is maybe saying right now is what the reg says, at least. If someone is coming in with a mixed-use proposal in a commercial zone, that's what the current requirement is, right?
Currently, we only allow mixed use in GBA. So does the reg tell you that you can come in with mixed use anywhere? Or is it saying that in a current mixed use zone, you can have no cap? And in a non-mixed use zone that you are capped with 2 to 9 units?
Have you had any input on that?
Well, so I thought that, I don't know, I focused more on the first bucket, but I didn't see the distinction between what has a cap and what doesn't. But I think, sort of aside from that, the idea that someone could come in and, oh my gosh, they're gonna dump a bunch of units on us, you can still regulate all of the fundamental construction components of a building. So if someone wants to come in and put a dentist's office and they want to put in 50 units, they still have to make the building envelope work. So those units may be 25 square feet, because you can limit setbacks, you can
I
limit
think
height.
we have a square footage limitation now on the size of those.
So you can, so the one thing that I know you can't do, or I'm not gonna say I know sitting next to an attorney, the one thing I think is that you cannot do is come up with some cutely worded language to limit density. So you can't say, yeah, you can do your summary review, you can do all the things, great, but you've gotta have 5,000 square feet of land area per unit. To get them to a place where that lot.
If you're in a commercial district, you can't do that.
You can't, right, you can't come up with some calculation that would limit them from some number within that 2 to 9, right? They have to be able to put 2 to 9, not demonstrate they have 5,000 square feet for every unit, and therefore they're limited to 6 total
And
units.
at issue, let me frame this, the 2 to 9 is throughout the commercial area, but the mixed use area, that is the GBA, and so the question pending, do those conflate now under this act, or are they still separate?
I think they conflate.
That seems to be within the COG analysis. Amy, you brought that up. I think that is in there. But listen, let me just say something. There's 169 towns and cities in Connecticut, and everyone is doing this because this is new. Everyone's trying to figure this out. There's going to be lawsuits. There's pending legislation right now in the state legislature modifying some of this. So this could even change some more, and that's pending right now. I see, that's out there, and there's a lot of people trying to sort this through.
The one thing that I would say is, between the towns that my firm is working with and we are writing some stuff for SCROG, we have taken sort of a form-based approach to how we're thinking about these regulations sort of landing, because at the end of the day, the law says you don't get to care about how many units, and you don't really get to care about where, because the map's already drawn. Yes, we can talk about coming up with some way to do some rezoning effort to change the names of zones and stuff, fine. But that aside, come July 1, really what you get to care about is the fundamental construction and operation of the site. So you can talk about the things that are listed, and it says, again, including but not limited to lot requirements concerning setbacks, lot size, building frontage, etc. So,
Does it include parking?
so you can talk about design standards related to parking, but you cannot, a separate part of the bill, you can't deny an application because you don't think there's enough parking. So you can say our regs require 2.
Can I just get That's a very important point about the parking situation. There's a lot of issues going on with that. And, you know, I've been in certain towns that are close to us, and you can't park anywhere now. So
Yeah.
there's restaurants and there's some building, okay? And like some of the restaurant owners, there's no place to park to go eat at the restaurant.
Yeah.
But that is a little bit on purpose. The state's trying to get things to move forward.
One of the things I think to think about is, aside from this idea that you don't get to have this, well, we'll put an asterisk next to it because there is a section of the bill that could allow for it, but we'd need a lot more coffee to get through all of that tonight. I think that the places where you really want to, you might run into that, tend to be areas where you have more population than parking because much of the population is relying on transit.
Yes.
In an area where you're seeing developments that are not, you know, they're not on bus or rail or what, people are not going to be cramming in many units in an area and not providing with the people they expect to pay rent a way to get to and from the places they need to go. So in a vehicle dependent community, that's likely not going to be an issue, which I think is what sort of this was born from. But I think to get back to the sort of way to approach this, my perspective has been, and sort of how we started this when I spoke to you guys in February, is that we want to make sure that we're clear on how these things are developed, because how they look is really what's going to impact everybody else. The people that live there, right, that's the building code and the health code, and making sure that there's everything in the building they need. But how the building looks and whether or not it fits in the specific zone it's in, and if the development of that site is aligned with the development around it, is where the design standards come in. And so I think what we start looking at is making sure that these properties have all the components that we would expect in an appropriately designed building. And so that's where we talk about things like roof type, building height, type of construction, a building type. So, you know, we want to make sure that people aren't trying to just cram these things into an existing strip plaza and, you know, frosting over some of the glass and saying, here's unit 1, here's unit 2. That's not exactly what we think about. So location of parking, front of the building to the side of the building, amenities.
Mike, this is a heavy lift for towns to do in 90 days.
I think.
Now, you must be working with other towns,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do you have any feedback to share with us about what's happening in other towns in terms of this?
So I think that what I would say, and Nick alluded to this, is that come July 1, someone doesn't come in and hand something to Chris and say, I'd like my building permit now, if we do nothing. It means that we're required to treat those applications through a summary review process. So this isn't a get out of jail free card. We're not printing golden tickets if we don't get it done. It's that we have to define the standards to be able to determine if the application is compliant. So you have site plan standards now, and it may be, they may be, you know, 80% of what we need or 20%. I don't have that answer for you now. But a building, once it's constructed, will be there for decades. And so I think we need to focus more heavily on making sure that the construction of that building and the operation of that site in relation to adjacent uses and other things is something that's going to work for the people that view that site off the property, people that drive by, but also for the people that are going to live there.
Understood.
So we.
Let me hold you on that. Let me hold you up, because we're going to do something a little bit here. We're still on the second point. Hold on, Amy. We're on the second point about potential zoning changes by July 1st, 2026. I'm going to see if there's any question from the Board of Selectmen, then any question from the commissioners here to our staff, and then we're going to move on to housing, opportunity housing, a little bit of discussion on that. These overlap, but this is an endless and complex discussion, and now we all know that. So this is a little complicated, but in some areas, it might not be very consequential. As Ben sort of said, we might be talking, maybe it's just a GBA 3. We have to find out if it's the whole commercial area. But we do realize as a town, all together, that this is a little bit of work in the next 3 months. This is some work to do. All right, anybody from the board of...
Jeff, if I could just quickly, because you had promised you'd come back, but you did not. That's okay, I'll forgive you. In terms of, you're going to talk about opportunity housing in the future, but my question is, in terms of parameters, how does this, not to add an extra layer, but in terms of assigning percentage of affordable deed restricted units within this construct, how would that work? And have you seen it happen yet? Have people started working towards that, or are we gonna be talking about that later tonight?
Listen, that's just another component of this whole thing by July 1st, 2026. What, if any, things can we do for affordable housing with respect to this particular stuff that comes in July 1st? Could we say, okay, if someone's building a development, they have to have so many affordable units, and that will go towards a moratorium or counting towards the towns, accruing towards our affordable housing goals, right? So that is yet another very important component, and thank you for interrupting me and bringing it up. It really meant a lot to me.
Anytime, Jeff.
All right, so now can I ask a Board of Selectmen question?
You can.
Okay, Mika goes first.
Well, and I'll just start off with one question that I have. One of the things that's never mentioned, that's not mentioned in any of this discussion so far is affordability for affordable homes as relates to this particular, these particulars. And in essence, if we don't include that, obviously we take the risk on potentially increasing our housing stock without increasing our affordability stock, which puts us in a worse position than we are already.
Absolutely, 100%.
So I'm not sure if, so to Ben's point, I understand, or Chairman Cherry's point, I'm sorry. Commissioner Cherry. What I'm getting at is, there are elements of our current zoning that we may want to modify because it's the right thing for us to do, irregardless of this legislation. And what we do have there now, still, if I understand Nick and Mike correctly, still play a part in terms of what we're doing, or what TPZ needs to consider. So from that perspective, how heavy of a lift this could be kind of relates to how it interacts with that. And what I'm not sure, and I haven't heard from Mike or Nick in regards to, is again the affordability aspect and what happens if and can we incorporate an affordability component in terms of this particular language.
And Mika, one quick point on that. The issue is the state is pushing for pushing to build. So they're just trying to do that. It's possible towns could put affordability type requirements in, and then the building stops because no developers will want to build with the affordable requirements. We could turn around and say, okay, we want any of the buildings 50% affordable because that helps us as a town, but no one will build it. So there's a little bit of that backwards. Nick, did you want to take Mika's comment and say anything else? Or?
Yeah.
But it's a really good point you said about that.
So the state is trying to incentivize some additional HUE points, which is the terminology for what you need to amass in order to apply to DOH for a 4-year moratorium from 830G applications, those types of applications that trump all of our zoning regulations, basically. The state, so there's a whole nother elective section of this legislation that says a municipality can apply to the state and be designated as a transit community, and then you're eligible for certain grants, and you also, for these types of developments that come in, these transit developments, there's a small, like 0.5 HUE point that you automatically get. So, I mean, we can explore if there's any benefit or interest in making this sort of an application. I think it came up and was discussed a little bit at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. Maybe we wouldn't qualify anyway, so it's not worth it. We can talk about all that more. But to directly answer the question, can we, in setting up these guardrails, so to speak, require that a certain portion of the 2 to 9 units, if they come in, be deed restricted as affordable, and also drive the town towards that 830G affordable units goal? I think the answer is yes. Mike and I were just sidebarring here. It would have to be across the board, though, to basically anything above a single family. There would have to be some affordability restriction component. That's sort of like treating things equally. These are, I mean, if we were to try to apply, it would have to be done across the board.
Understood.
In the entire town, any So like our incentive zoning, we basically have to have a mandatory inclusionary zoning overlay on any development in the town.
Right.
If we wanted it to apply to the mixed use or the transit community development. So that's.
Yeah, I mean, the law is so broadly worded right here, if you don't do it that way,
Yeah.
then we're kind of stuck.
That's gonna get changed, I think people are gonna
Well,
debate
it's in,
that. That's gonna be in the
everyone's
house,
talking
I
about it
mean,
in
that's
session
gonna.
right now. I mean, what ends up resulting from the current session, who knows, Jeff? It may confuse things even more, but.
Maria.
Can I back up a minute?
Hold on, folks, listen, I gotta get, let the chair get a little control of the meeting. I want to hear what everyone has to say, just watching the clock on the second point. I'm gonna recognize Maria, and then Amy, and then we're gonna go into our third point of opportunity housing regs. I promise you, a lot of these issues will come up. Maria, please.
So I think this brings up a good point that the state has a lot of very good noble goals, but sometimes they've handled them in silos as opposed to looking at them collaboratively, which is how we've been doing them tonight. And I know we had that discussion in strategic planning as well, talking about what goals and visions to work towards. I think there might be other ways, and I think Andrea touched on this a little bit earlier, to incentivize affordable units. Perhaps if we don't do it through zoning, we could do it through ordinance and tax incentives, and that's sort of another way to incentivize that without having that be a zoning regulation. So there may be other ways to come at that. And I know Andrea had mentioned that before as well, so that's all I had to say.
All right, Amy, you get the last question of the discussion for July 1, 2026.
Okay, so one is just to be clear, because there are so many, I have two questions. One is the zoning, the business district. The business district has so many little different districts, zones. Are we saying, are we hearing tonight that everything that we colloquially call the business district, or even though there's, a dozen different designations, is now subject to this law?
Yes.
Okay, so that's question one. And then just a suggestion, if you are gonna look at clear yes, no parameters, some of the public engagement work has been done through the placemaking study in 2023 that will help you have some comfort that you can get to yes, no for certain things, because people were already heavily engaged in this process and talking about colonial, height, all sorts of aspects of it, so you can have some comfort even if you're having to steamroll this through, that there has been public input.
So let's get that document
Yes.
over to Chris Sullivan.
Yes.
I know, but we have.
It was the 2030.
I read it, it's very interesting, a lot of work was
All
done.
right, chair has the floor. TPC chair has the floor. Not to be mean, but to just keep things moving. Andrea, you can say your piece and we're moving on.
Thank you so much. Quick question, yes or no, I think, for these two men, is there a way in a design standard to give an application more weight, I guess, like a yes or no, if the application is working from an existing footprint, or if the application clearly is considering non-obstructing and potentially enhancing and supporting the existing businesses?
We started.
Sure.
I think what you're talking about is like an incentive. And so we could do that through a density bonus if someone checked certain boxes. So what that kind of goes to, I don't know, maybe it was your question or somebody's related to the affordable housing stuff. You could allow them to the 2 to 9, but say, however, you can get an additional 0.25 units per whatever if you do the following things.
Okay.
And so if you check all these boxes, boom, you can get more density. And if the density is what they need, then they would be incentivized to do the things that you're thinking should be incorporated.
All right, thank you.
Thanks everyone for participating on that second point. So we're going to move on to the third point that TPZ is taking up tonight. And in our remaining time, very clearly, these are pretty complicated issues for us to all have to grapple with on TPZ and together. So, Mike, the Town Planning and Zoning Commission has been working with you and with Nick to revise and take a look at our opportunity housing regulations, which is section 3.4 of our existing regs. So with respect to that language, you've been looking and exploring different ways to possibly refit that, change it, look at it. Can you give us an update on that, please?
Yeah, so what we've discussed And the memo that I gave you guys in February, which Nick expanded on in March, relates to sort of what I think should be the approach. And the title of the memo was something along the lines of actions which will increase housing availability. Because this is not just about capital A affordable housing. It's about access to more and different housing. And even if it's not a deed restricted affordable unit, if it's a condo, if it's an apartment, if it's a multi-unit building, whatever, it will be more attainable to someone that wouldn't qualify for deed restricted, but still isn't going to spend $500,000 plus on a single family home because maybe they don't want it. So we're trying to solve the housing issue more globally. My suggestion and what we discussed was that we sort of consider fundamentally shifting the overall organization of the Opportunity Housing Reg, because in the small time that I've been here, I didn't see anybody give it great compliment in the last several months, and take a tiered approach to how housing developments are structured in their review. So we decided, or I sort of came up with a tier 1, which is sort of to align with the summary review, which is the small projects, very non-threatening, not a big deal, no requirement for a public hearing, and that's where we're going to create the yes/nos. Then I said we could have a second tier, which perhaps would be a more traditional review process, perhaps involving a special permit and public hearing for projects that exceed that 9-unit limitation, and that's where the commission can go through its normal process where it's a little bit more comfortable with, hey, maybe we need a little more of this, or can we shift that? And then I suggested that we adopt a sort of a third tier, which would involve the master planning process and sort of a multi-step review and sort of conversation to deal with large properties or large
So this is what we affectionately call Dr. Cherry's menu, right? Because you had this whole menu that we came back with and you came forward and what was that title again?
It was something along the lines of increasing housing availability.
Yes, and as it went, page 1, page 2, and it started up smaller, and then it went to even entire like districts or zones or something. I do want to say we're going to engage with you on this. I do just want to make one procedural comment, okay, as Commissioner Chair. This is a lot to do both of these in a rapid succession. So we need to, I think, focus on the July 1st stuff that's just come, because we only have so much time. I can't ask my commissioners to start meeting weekly, okay? I mean, this is a lot, all right? Paul can come weekly. There's alternates that will fill in, all right? We have a co-chair that can help out the vice chair. But what you're describing, we're gonna go that way with an emphasis on affordable housing, all right? Because we wanna get to a moratorium. We do wanna provide more housing choice, as we've discussed, okay?
Can I give you 2 thoughts?
You may. Yes, you may. Go ahead.
One, I think that we need to be cognizant of, so the idea of creating affordable housing, capital A, deed restricted affordable housing, the number of times that term has been said within this zip code is probably astonishing, is important. But if you establish a mandatory affordable housing set aside for all housing developments under inclusionary zoning, which you can do legally, you will probably very likely not see housing developments at all.
I agree.
So we're going to have to.
It's very important.
Yeah, we're going to have this.
Housing commission behind me.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand that, but we do want to try to move towards a moratorium as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a balance.
We want, if I might, we want more affordable homes. That's the moratorium is a result of us doing a good job on that, from my perspective. So to your point, Mike, the thing that kind of concerns me about your point is, I understand that puts constraints upon potential partners to develop more housing. If you include set aside affordable, capital A affordable set asides in developments. However, we've had a number of developments in our business district, and we don't have any we don't have anything that would require them to do affordable units, and it seems to me like that's a missed opportunity. And so there's there's a need for it that we have that needs to be considered. I understand what your point is.
Yep.
And it's caused us some problem, obviously, that's one of the reasons.
Yep.
But there's gotta be a balance there.
Yep.
Because we absolutely, in my mind, and I could be wrong in this, if I am, then we really need to make sure that explanation is clear enough for not only me to understand it, but our public to understand it. My sense is if we don't put it in there, then that decreases our ability to actually attain what we're looking for, and that's more affordable units.
Well, so I think.
Like, just really quickly,
Yeah.
in addition to Mika's comment, as Amy and I have discussed, and I've heard Amy say, is that may be true for private developers.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other developers, nonprofits, for example, where I don't think would be disincentivized or turned off by a regulation like that.
Yeah, and those folks are gonna be going the affordable route regardless, most likely. But I think, so, I'm sure someone here could shout out to me the number of completely undeveloped lots in commercial zones exist in town, right? And so that's the universe of projects that can be new. I'm assuming it's a small number, because your business zones are not large to begin with, even if all of them were green. So what you're likely to see are existing buildings which are gonna have a partial conversion to residential units. If you have a small business owner that we talked about earlier that has a shop or some business on the ground floor and a vacant space upstairs and they want to convert to 4 units, telling that person that they need to deed restrict 1 unit to 30% of 80 AMI and do all the income vetting on an annual basis, they're not going to do it. And so there's 2 points to this conversation. There's affordable, capital A, and attainable, which is creating access to housing that is more affordable to whoever wants to live in it.
Mike, understood.
Yep.
Stay right there. I have a commission member, and I want to give him the floor real quick. Mel?
I guess I had one question to step back so I fully understand, and then another piece on the affordable housing. As just on the July 1st deadline, as a TPZ member, effectively what we're saying is that the mixed use and business districts, the guardrails that should be taken into consideration is a potential future where this is far more residential than currently designed. And so when we think about those districts, part of the summary review process would be that what's designed in the regulations is the thought of a future where zones not originally designed for residential use have components in the regulations that allow for thoughtful residential use. Otherwise, it's going to be unsafe and you're going to have crazy traffic. Is that like a general understanding of how to, as a TPZ member, to think about the July 1st deadline and how we think about reviewing the regulations we currently have in place for those zones?
I'd say so.
I agree.
Can I piggyback a question on that, please,
Yeah.
just quickly? So, but if we were to choose to define a regulation that requires a certain minimum percentage of capital A affordable units, as long as that were consistently applied and not too dissimilar to state ratios for affordable units, that would be permitted, is that correct? We would not do it for the purpose of trying to not allow development or not promote development, right, for being anti-development. But we might choose to do it to try to increase the proportion of affordable units in town. So am I correct that legally and statutorily we'd be allowed to, okay, thank you, to institute such requirement?
But to jump off of that, my understanding is, I think both the Partnership for Stronger Communities, and I also believe that the Commission of the Department of Housing has said this publicly, that the cost of a deed-restricted affordable unit is twice as much as building a market rate unit. And unless we're going the socialized housing route, we're entirely dependent on a private sector to take and develop a piece of land. And so that, I think what I'm hearing you say, Mike, is that you have to be thoughtful about the affordability requirement because it puts a significant pressure on the private sector to be able to actually make a profitable development. Otherwise, we're stuck with effectively empty lots. And so I think that was my second point. As TPZ, I'm both thinking of how do we potentially have a future of a residential area that is useful, safe, and people like. But secondarily, I think as TPZ we have a responsibility about thoughtful growth and growth that actually happens. And so what information could you provide or help us to understand like the market influences that do or don't create the opportunity, the likely development that we want to encourage?
Can I just have one coloring to that comment?
Sure, go ahead, Lynn.
With the new state regulations, they're not just affecting Woodbridge. So I'm sure the towns across the state are also looking at these possible restrictions on development. So I'm obviously not in the development game myself, but I would imagine that the value proposition of development with or without affordable housing is going to be changing across the state, not just in Woodbridge. So it's not like they can just go town next door and develop, because they're also in those same constraints. So, sorry.
That's a good point.
I think what I would say to that is, it's a little, we can certainly look at certain factors, but painting the whole picture is tricky because part of what makes the project viable, aside from, certain developers just won't do affordable, and so if you say affordable, they say see ya. But setting that aside, the product it will inform the market, and if they're building a good product that will rent well, then they can oftentimes get enough from the market rate to make something work if they're even interested. But just to give you an example, I won't tell you the town, but it was a development of around 400 units. They required deed restricted units at the 3080, and then they required workforce units. There's somewhere in the realm of 30 to 40 workforce units in this development. It was just constructed, and they're all vacant because they rent. When you do the calculation, it is within $20 of market, and nobody wants to go through that process to be there. So for 8 months, this development has had all those units completely empty because the town said, we want to have these requirements, and you're going to have X percentage affordable, X percentage workforce, and they said, okay, great. And now they're finding it doesn't work. There's nobody that wants these units.
The
So
state's gonna have to make some changes, because with the 830G situation,
yeah,
when town's trying to do this, you build these 40 units, and then the 830G goes down the street,
yeah.
And goes over regulations. That's a frustrating thing.
So they're
That's
trying to figure out now, they're sort of reeling about what do we do? And they're basically saying, when you look at all the costs and what we have to do on an annual basis, nobody wants to occupy the unit because they've got to have the same thing, income verified every year. And then they're in that position where they will be placed out of their housing if they get a raise at work.
Well, that's what Chris Sullivan does for us. She's gonna be doing all this paperwork.
Yeah.
Hold on, everybody, hold on a second. I'm gonna recognize the commissioner real quick, who's had a question for a little bit. Dr.
Well, Selectman Madonic had said about providing property tax incentives. It may not be just part of this regulation, but if they're available, developers see that, it may help to produce more affordable housing. She said that that's something that is something to seriously consider.
It's a good point. All right, let me circle back here as a chair running a meeting inside of a board of selectmen meeting, so let me circle back here. A lot of things have been discussed. There's been a lot of discussion going on. TPZ appreciates the board of selectmen and all the commission folks from different places in Woodbridge coming out tonight. We appreciate that very much. Nick, I'll be in touch with you, Mike and Chris, to how do we adapt TPZ's agenda for the next 3 months with this full plate of reacting to, the public act, okay? So this is gonna be a pretty difficult thing to do, but I'll be in touch with you guys. We'll talk to the commissioners about how to plan this out for the next 90 days, okay? Definitely a little bit more emphasis in the July 1st deadline. We want to address all these other things with affordable housing, with a big A and a small a, housing diversity, all these types of things, town-owned properties. A lot of good discussion here tonight, but especially with the July 1st, 2026 dates coming up, we have to kind of craft an agenda and sort of have some stuff. We have to have public hearings to change our regs, okay? So we have a little bit of work to do, and I think that's been made obvious by the really good points that everyone's been bringing up. So what I'm gonna do is say that, I recognize a couple more people with some questions. I see some questions all around. Mika, I wanna go to you for a second too. And then what we're gonna do in a few minutes is we're gonna conclude the TPZ meeting. And then the Board of Selectmen, you guys are gonna be here till 11 tonight or 10? Because we're going home. Okay, but thank you very much. All right, Andrea, I'm gonna recognize you and then maybe a commissioner, but please go ahead.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. So in kind of light of all of our conversations tonight and Melvin's points, which of course the focus of these regulations and this work is to promote housing accessibility, more available options, little a, capital A. And we, I believe, as a community, at least the Board of Selectmen, have acknowledged the need to grow our economic sector and invest in commercial growth as well. And so a question I have and that I think is important for TPZ to consider throughout this very heavy lift of yours is how. How do you reconcile those two needs and not compromise our need to increase affordability and meet these PA 2501 needs without further stifling our commercial sector? Because to Melvin's point, like if we're using our commercial base as an area to focus in increased residential, which I ultimately believe is a good path forward for this, but we can't lose any more commercial base. We need to grow our commercial base also. So I really encourage you and you who are helping guide this process to keep that in mind, because Woodbridge needs to grow and
Yeah,
support.
Andrew, look at Chadi, he's right there.
Yeah, I
So
can't
keep
really
Chadi.
see him from the setup,
But I mean,
but
that's why, you know, the EDC is an important component. We can
Yes.
change all kind of regs and plan, but we need the Board of Selectmen, we need the EDC to go find some people. This is the first selectman, we have a terrific first selectman. Please go find some businesses to come into town. Okay. Chadi, please go get some businesses. And that mixed use model, to your point, is what it increases the tax base, we
Yes.
can increase housing options, and for sure.
yeah.
To that end, I'm sorry. I'll wait till the end.
Okay, please, Chadi.
So to piggyback on what Andrea was saying, we've been focusing on a business district.
Yeah.
I think that's short-sighted. We need to focus on the entire town, which touches on what Andrea's getting at. There's only so much real estate in the business district, and if you put houses versus other businesses, I'm not saying businesses will or will not go there.
Right.
You lose that space. So we need to focus on what we're gonna do for our regulations everywhere. We need to look at Woodbridge as a whole in terms of what we want Woodbridge to look like. Residential, commercial, retail, whatever it is. If we don't understand that, then we're just gonna change regulations and whatever pops up, pops up. So we need to look at the entire town, and I can't emphasize that enough. There's more than just the business district to put homes. You can use a business district for businesses, you can use somewhere else for homes, or a mix of everything. So I
The
don't
town
want,
doesn't have like a big wide open area, does it? Where that's owned by the town and there's nothing built on it? And it's like, is there any, like, I don't know.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
I can think of 150 acres.
So at that point, I'm gonna recognize any commission member real quick. Meek, I'm gonna let you have the last word, then we're gonna adjourn, so you guys can have the rest of your meeting. But any TPZ members wanna have a
So,
comment, please?
quick comment,
Please.
and then question. I completely agree with Chadi. I think there's the tension, right? I mean, this is the piece where we have to make real decisions that may result in, sort of a menu of regulations that in some ways is not as, welcoming or promoting of residential development because we're seeking to, preserve or enhance the commercial character of certain parts of town, right? So this is where we have to think carefully about how to define housing regulations within GB, for example, right? And I guess GBA to some extent. So, but the question is, Mike, could you just extrapolate that story, that anecdote, all the way to the end for me, just to make sure that I'm not misinterpreting something? So in these workforce units that remain unoccupied, The downstream effect is the developer who's sort of the property manager is left holding the bag, and other developers see that and they go, oh, I'm not gonna do that. Is that right? Or what, is there something else that's the downstream effect of that?
I think that there's, because of the long runway between when a project is designed and envisioned and when it actually goes to market, they understood the number of units they were gonna need to construct, and they worked it into their model, just like with the affordable. But there's a lot more people that will qualify for a deed restricted affordable unit than a workforce unit, because it's much closer to what area median income is. And the area that qualifies to determine median income is much larger than just your town. So it's not so much that everybody else will say, ooh, I don't think we should go forward because look at them. Because again, they're building different products, and so the rents, if they had built a product that was twice as valuable, super luxurious, let's say, and the market was way up here, then the workforce units feel more attractive because there's a big difference between a workforce. But because they're so close, can I just like insert one thought, since it's, I think applies and I have the mic?
One more thought.
I anticipated that this might come up, and there are a lot of communities that will tell you that the path to grand list growth for most towns now is through multifamily development. Commercial development is not exactly booming in most places, and there are many towns that will say that some of their grand list rebound has been through multifamily development. We had a project in another town, it was 318 units across several buildings, got approved and is going forward now with the construction. The assessor has established an initial valuation of around $55 million. So when you figure out whatever the mill rate is in Woodbridge and you look at the value of a 300 unit mixed use development, $50 million, that will become top 5 taxpayers in almost every town in Connecticut. So this is also an opportunity to see that grand list growth, and if you have more people, they patronize the businesses that are there. So it can all work together. I don't think you necessarily want to look at it as, well, now that we have to do X, we're going to lose out on Y. I think there's a way to be thoughtful about both, but the short term, there can be some gains, which will still have really strong impacts on grand list.
Mike, thank you for your comments. Back to me as the chair of TPZ. I'm going to recognize the first selectman to finish us up. Did you want to have one final comment, Mika?
Just wanted to say, I certainly appreciate the session and the information and the exchange of information that we're having. It certainly helps to understand a little bit better and give us a more focused view in terms of what we need to get done. But I will say, as far as the business district is concerned, and comments, as far as discussion related to trying to build and grow our commercial district in particular, so our tax base is a little bit more diverse. There are some challenges, and generally speaking, businesses come. One of the things that's required for businesses to come is favorable zoning. Is zoning that's not necessarily the case here, in the sense of we have a very small commercial district, and we've just been discussing the multiple number of different zoning districts we have within that. So I can tell you we have been speaking with some of the business owners. There is opportunity in our business district. And as was mentioned earlier by some of the board, one of the things that some owners are clamoring for is mixed use. It's all part of what should be a part of a grand plan, to Chadi's point, that encompasses more. And one of the things I do want to ask the TPZ to consider is, as you're considering affordability as may relate to this particular July 1st type consideration, to not overlook the fact that maybe whatever you're doing for that could apply to something broader. In which case, and rather than going back and doing it another time, that we do it at the same time.
Understood.
So it's there's a lot to be considered down there. I appreciate your efforts, and
we'll get it done in the next week or two.
And however we can help, I can tell you we're going to do it.
Mika, thank you. Listen, I'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen for letting us insert this whole meeting during their meeting. I'd like to thank the Economic and Development Commission team. I'd like to thank the Housing Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Sustainability Committee, and the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Properties. Thank you so much for joining us for this meeting.
Whenever I have one more point.
Okay, please, Mika.
I just wanted to make sure the group here in particular understands this was the first in what we expect to be an ongoing type of a session, that this isn't a one-time only type of thing. but we did want to start at this point with this particular agenda since there was an urgency for the July date in terms of doing some things. But this is something that we intend to and we will be doing going forward.
Thank you very much. So thank you to everybody that has come this evening. May I have a motion to adjourn the TPZ component?
So moved.
Oh, all right, he was already there. I need a second. Dr. Cherry seconded. All those in favor from the TPZ of discontinuing and ending the TPZ meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous vote. I don't think there was anyone saying no.
Do I have a motion from the Board of Selectmen in terms of adjourning our meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Good. Are you guys going back into session? Oh, you're done?
Yeah, we're just-
Oh, I heard you guys.
Yeah.